What's going on? 6 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Day one of the Senior Bowl in the books. Titans radio, Zach Lyons, football, other F words. Ramon Foster down in Mobile doing a great job. Make sure you follow them for all the drills, standouts, winners and losers, and everything in between. Ramon Foster is going to join the show at 7:20 with his day one observations. Rhett, Bryan in the 9 o'clock hour. Saints coaching search starts to whittle down, but not by their choice. Both Mike McCarthy and Cliff Kingsbury would rather enjoy their off-season and, in Cliff Kingsbury's case, return to the team he took from 4 wins to an NFC championship appearance. The Saints completed another interview with Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, who looks to be the favorite to land the job. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Wednesday morning, welcome to the middle of your week. Starting now on 104.5 The Zone, RKW is on your radio and on your smart devices. Streaming live on 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. We'll check in once again with the R in RKW coming up at 7:20 from Mobile at the Reese's Senior Bowl. A lot of takeaways on the big guys yesterday in Mobile, and some quarterbacks that weren't great, other than maybe a guy whose name you've probably been mispronouncing all through the college football season. We'll talk about that coming up later in the show. Rhett Bryan joins us at 9 o'clock, courtesy of Titans Radio, of course, as well. We've got Tennessee falling at home in the hardwood and men's basketball. We've got quarterback options for the Titans and Kayla. We have a free agent, or I shouldn't say free agent. We have Titans front office talking about quarterbacks. Lots to discuss this morning. How are you?
I know, doing well. I was looking at the chat this morning, and I know a lot of disappointed Tennessee Volunteer fans didn't go to bed in the best way last night. Man, I was sitting watching the game, obviously, up in my bed, Will, and there was that stretch of, a minute and a half where it was almost like they were getting the opportunity to come back into this thing, but just couldn't hit that three. And it just seemed like Kentucky would give them another opportunity. And I understand this morning if you're frustrated. Kentucky just could shoot the ball last night, I guess, right?
They could. Tennessee tried 45 threes, and they only made 11 of them. They were one of their last 12 to finish this game. And despite the fact that Kentucky did not hit a field goal over the last 5 minutes and 20 seconds of the basketball game, Tennessee could not take advantage.
That was a weird ending. I don't know if I've seen something that weird before, where it was just like, here's an opportunity. Yeah. Oh, here, Kentucky, you can put it away too. And it just seemed like they were both kind of fumbling and bumbling.
It was not ideal. It was not the kind of bounce-back performance Tennessee needed. It looked like a team that just forgot how to shoot in their home gym, which is odd for them. And Tennessee's last 2-point attempt in the game last night against Kentucky came with 4 minutes and 40 seconds left in the game. They shot all threes for the final 4 minutes and 10 seconds. A Chaslanier three to make it 71-68. They only made 2 of them to finish the game at that point. So frustrating loss for the Vols last night. I think as frustrating as it's gotten all season for them. 78-73, the final score for Kentucky. Early enough still to where games like that can be a wake-up call, a lesson that's significant. I mean, heck, last season, Kentucky won in Thompson-Boling Arena, and they lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament to Jack Golke, and Tennessee made the Elite Eight. But you're certainly starting to see some cracks in the foundation exposed in that Tennessee team, who we really thought was maybe taking a step forward and was one shot away from beating Auburn. Shows you how tough the SEC is. You're one shot away from winning at number one, and then, you lose to a team you're better than at home on a Tuesday night.
And we spoke about it, too, yesterday, Will. This was going to be one of those games that it had to go one way or the other. Kentucky coming in with a 2-game, losing skid.
Yep.
that's a tough place to be in as an SEC school at this point, or an SEC team at this point. On the other hand, Tennessee, knowing we just came off of a road loss, let's start defending our home now that we're here for a bit of a stretch. And it clearly went Kentucky's way. By the way, I know the chat, there was a comment about Kentucky playing good defense. I would almost say, too, I don't know about that. And the turnover margin, too, was way in favor of the Vols in this game when it came down to it.
Yeah, the Kentucky essentially let the players that they wanted Tennessee to shoot.
Yeah.
In hindsight, really good matchup for Kentucky because they struggle to stop anyone getting to the rim, and Tennessee doesn't have anyone that goes to the rim.
Right.
Zakai Ziegler is about it for Tennessee, who goes to the basket, and scary moment for him at the end of the first half, and certainly glad he's all right. But that is not Tennessee's game. Tennessee is either a two-man game up top, lob it up to the big man, or try threes. And this team's got to find other ways to score the basketball because right now it's either live ball turnovers or they're running in transition, or it's a three-pointer coming off a screen away for the ball for Chaz Lanier, for Jordan Gainey, penetration and kick it back out. There's very little layup points for this Tennessee team right now, and they are way too one-dimensional on offense for me right now.
That's actually a great point because in just watching yesterday, too, down the stretch, even I think at times, Will, where they didn't have to go for three, you were like, okay, just drive it, right? Like, get in, like, drive it. And that wasn't happening. It would just be like, kick out to Zakai, kick out to Igor Milicic. And it just, they weren't hitting the threes last night. But you're right. Like, the inside game kind of didn't feel like it was there, especially in those crucial minutes when they could have maybe gone for two.
615-737-1045 is our number. More on that as the show continues this morning. Going to talk about free agent quarterback options for the Titans coming up here in about 15 minutes, and a scale of 1 to 10 on your interest level in a bunch of them. Our question of the morning on Twitter at Ramon Kayla Will: who is the worst quarterback option for the Tennessee Titans? Out of all of the free agent QBs that could come here, what is the one that you absolutely hate the most? So you can let us know about that on Twitter at Ramon Kayla Will as well. We'll get a lot of updates from the Senior Bowl today as well. Ramon Foster at 7:20. Rhett Bryan at 9 o'clock for his weekly visit here with us. Saw a lot of buzz about linemen, about some edge rushers yesterday, and then saw a lot of criticism for the good quarterbacks. Not a good day for Jalen Milroe or for Jackson Dart. It was actually Seth Hennigan and Tyler Shuck, the Memphis and Louisville quarterbacks I saw most of the praise for yesterday.
It was interesting. I watched a little bit of the Senior Bowl yesterday on the NFL broadcast, and it was definitely Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe time there, and it was not that at all, especially for Milroe. I think we spoke about him yesterday and debating on whether or not he could possibly be a third quarterback off the board, or could it be Jackson Dart? And yesterday, not a good start for Milroe. Struggling, had an interception, just didn't feel confident. And I think that's what you felt like with a lot of the quarterbacks yesterday. Feel like they were a little bit uneasy out there, all eyes on them. Maybe you see them shake it off in this first practice, Will, and we can see them bounce back today. But I do feel like there's a little pressure on all these other quarterbacks knowing that they can really rise their draft stock this year because it is really a 2-quarterback race right now.
Well, it'll be good to talk to Ramon about some of the big guys, the offensive linemen, because yesterday Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan spoke with the media, and Borgonzi was asked about the biggest needs heading into the draft and free agency. And he said, quote, "We have some holes to fill on the offensive line. That will be number one."
Well,
he watched the same team we did last year.
And I know that's number one on the list, but it can't be number one in the draft. And I think that's where we have to figure out. I mean, that'd be kind of crazy.
Not number one overall, but if you trade it back and took a left tackle,
that's true. I understand beefing up everything, and that's what they've done for the past 2 years. I just think at some point you have to have a better plan for that, and they do have an opportunity to get some draft picks. I don't know if it needs to be the first round pick they take, because I do think if you really do your research and find a left tackle that maybe you can put over to right or move Latham, you have to have a plan going in for sure, though, Will. I just think they need to take a better option, number one, or even if it's in the first round.
Yeah, a lot of people like Will Campbell, right tackle out of LSU there early. So we'll see. It's certainly interesting, and we got some interesting analysis from Borgonzi, from Callahan, about the quarterback position specifically as well yesterday. I thought the quote of the day was from Bryan Callahan. We'll dive more into this at 8:20 this morning, who said, in Cincinnati, we knew we were going to take Joe Burrow pretty early. Mm-hmm. That's a bit of a different story. That's not where this draft is for us right now.
Yeah, I understand that was the clear blown choice at that moment for that organization. And I also think that was a quarterback class where everybody was all in on Joe Burrow. There was like no questions about it, right? He had just won a national championship. He had the highest stock by far. So I think it was an obvious choice when it was all said and done. Whereas in this class, you've got the two quarterbacks that are in the mix, but you still have all these people saying, well, are they really franchise quarterbacks? More so than anything, Will, I think Joe Burrow they looked at him as starting right away. Whereas they look at these two quarterbacks as, do we want to possibly sit these guys? Because right now it looks like they're more developmental. And if you're taking them number one overall in this day and age, you're kind of expected to start them.
Challenging for a number one overall pick, not to start them right away.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I wouldn't love to necessarily even start a Cam Ward right away, but when it's all said and done, if you're going and putting it all in and all your chips on that, it's hard to say you can't. But if you get that bridge quarterback in, Will, and you even let Cam sit for half a season while this other veteran quarterback does his thing, I think that's okay too.
It'll be interesting. We'll dive more into that coming up this morning at 8:20. 615-737-1045, the number if you want to jump in. But coming up next, I'm going to give you a bunch of free agent veteran quarterback options. And I want your interest level in them at a scale of 1 to 10. You can hop in the F&M Bank chat on the 1045 The Zone YouTube channel and interact with it there as well. We got a lot of quarterback options who could be realistic targets with the cap opportunity you have here in Nashville. How interested or not so interested are you in some of these guys? We'll talk about that next.
My friends at Genesis Diamonds are psyched for the new year, man. Lots of great things are happening, and they are ready to help you celebrate those important milestones with better value, higher quality, and uncompromising customer care. At Genesis, they have expanded their selection of exquisite hand-picked diamonds from a half a carat to 15 carats, all shapes, all sizes, all at Genesis famous no middleman prices. They have also brought in even more exclusive designer jewelry too. New cutting edge fashion forward rings, earrings, bands, bracelets, pendants, things you can't find anywhere else. Remember, Genesis is the only place where you can find all the premier designers in the world, in the bridal world, all right? And of course, Genesis is proud to offer truly spectacular collection of luxury pre-owned Rolex timepieces. They have all the most popular models in stock too. So get to Genesis in 2025 and let the non-commissioned experts help you celebrate those important milestones. They guarantee the best value, the highest quality, and the strongest warranties and guarantees in the jewelry industry. And they also have no commission salespeople, so there's no pressure to buy. Genesis Diamonds and luxury pre-owned Rolex timepieces are located in Green Hills and Cool Springs.
NFL draft process getting started for the Tennessee Titans. And believe it or not, their decision on a free agent quarterback comes a lot sooner than you think. 615-737-1045 is the number this morning on RKW. Kayla Anderson and Will Bowling with you. We'll add Ramon into the mix coming up in an hour from Mobile at the Reese's Senior Bowl. So I've compiled a list of free agent quarterback options because, Kayla, despite what Tennessee does with the number 1 overall pick, they need to sign a quarterback. Fair?
Absolutely fair.
I think there is a 10 out of 10 chance that they are signing someone. It remains to be seen the profile of what that player looks like. I guess there's still a chance they could bring in a Mason Rudolph, you're here to be the backup type of guy, but I think most likely they will bring in a free agent quarterback who will likely start week 1, even if they do draft Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward.
I think that is the smartest thing to do, Will. And I say this because while we have admitted, and I think now the team has kind of admitted that this is going to be a bit of a rebuild and they're trying to reshape everything from the ground up, they still have to win games next year. They can't win just 3 games and think that everything is going to be fine and dandy. There is still an expectation from ownership down that they need to improve overall as a team. And part of doing that is getting better at the quarterback position. And even if you draft a quarterback this year, a young quarterback, I think they think we need every option on the table to work with. And we have enough money to go out and get a bridge quarterback that's a veteran, and then to also draft a quarterback that's really young. And let me make this clear, all young quarterbacks can be developmental. They all need to be to the next level. When they get to the next level, they're still developing. And that's what I mean by developmental. I'm not saying that Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders are developmental quarterbacks in the way that, they don't have what it takes yet. But it does benefit all quarterbacks that are that young to maybe sit for a second and see from a guy that's done it before so that they're not like Bryce Young and sprung into a situation with an O-line that's maybe a little bit weaker that is overwhelming for them. So I think if they have the opportunity to go get 2 and start one that has more experience, I think that's the way to do it.
Well, we've heard that Michael Penix, if he came out this year, would likely be the number 1 quarterback in this draft, and he wasn't ready to start right away.
Correct.
He's
he
behind
came
Kirk
in,
Cousins.
How many games in, Will? I mean, it was
2/3 of the season. I mean, for all intents and purposes, just late in the season.
Exactly.
I think it's a lot about just the quarterbacks you have available to you. There's not a guy that is as ready as you would like them to be to go in right away. So, that being said, free agent quarterback options for the Titans. I want your interest level on a scale of 1 to 10 in the following names. And I think it feels logical to begin with the domino of the quarterback free agent market this offseason. Sam Darnold will be 28 in 2025. Ben Solak at ESPN.com said a 3-year, $90 million contract for him would fall in line with deals signed recently by veteran free agents given an opportunity to hold down a starting job. In 2023, a 31-year-old Jimmy Garoppolo got a 3-year, $72.75 million deal with the Raiders. I think he's going to get more than just 3 years, 90. I think he might be closer to 3 years, 100. So that being said, what is your interest level on a scale of 1 to 10 for Sam Darnold for the Tennessee Titans?
So my interest level based purely on what he did this season in the regular season, would he be good enough to help this team win more games? When you look at just his statistics this last year, I would say, yeah, he probably did enough this last season. He was the talk of the town for a while, right? In terms of how he was elevating the Minnesota Vikings and reboosting his career. But I think then when you saw what happened in the postseason and when the lights started to shine on Sam Darnold, he started to crumble a bit. And when it's all said and done, if you're going to pay that much money to a quarterback and then give him that much money, I don't know if that's the answer right now for the Titans. I don't think they're looking for a longer-term veteran quarterback. I think they're more looking for a bridge type of veteran quarterback. He's still only 28 years old, so he's not the first on my list by any means. I'm going to put him interest level. I'll do a 7, Will.
I'm surprised I'm lower than you on interest level, simply because I think the Titans aren't ready for a quarterback like this. The thing the Titans would have to decide is Sam Darnold good enough to make other guys around him that much better?
It's a good question.
I don't know the answer to that. I'm doubtful. As good as Sam Darnold was this past season, it doesn't feel like the Titans are going to have enough mutual interest from his camp in order to come here. I also think if you're drafting Sam, or if you're signing Sam Darnold, you're likely not drafting a quarterback with the number 1 overall pick. You could do both. That's certainly an option, but I think it would be in the best interest of the organization to then try to make everything else around him that much better, because maybe you could compete in the AFC South at that point. From what I have heard from the organization, though, I don't feel like that is going to be their philosophy. I don't think they're going to go for the short-term quarterback option now just to try to compete more quickly in the AFC South. They're more focused on competing when new Nissan Stadium opens. That is priority 1 in that organization right now. I don't think Sam Darnold gives you the best opportunity to do that. I like him a lot. I think he is clearly the best option for teams. I just don't think the Titans are rich enough around him to be in that market very strongly. So I'm a 6 out of 10. I would do it. I'm certainly interested. I think there are far worse options on this list that we'll get to, but I don't think he is priority number 1. No.
Yeah, and real quick, too, I think he really did go into a great situation in Minnesota, too, in terms of Kevin O'Connell and his background with how he's elevated quarterbacks. And I know Brian Callahan says that is what he is trying to do, but that's not proven yet here. And this offense isn't proven yet here. So that's another part of it you have to think about.
Then there's Aaron Rodgers. Scale of 1 to 10. How interested are you?
God. If I could go below, no, I'm just kidding. 1. Honestly, 1, 2 out of max for me, Will. And I'm not just trying to say that because it's Aaron Rodgers, and every time we say his name, we kind of roll our eyes a bit. I just really feel at this point at 41 years old, if you look at last year, and I do truly feel like he had talent around him. And I know the offensive line wasn't as good as it should have been when they went out and tried to find options to, beef it up a little bit. I do look at, though, the guys he brought in, including Devontae Adams, who clearly didn't even make an effect. Like, I feel like he is completely rolled back in terms of what he was as a wide receiver, and you thought he would have rolled forward going to New York. Being with the guy he's been with before, has had chemistry with before. They've got a really talented team in terms of pieces over there. It's almost like Aaron Rodgers devalued them, in a way. And I know the coaching staff was a mess as well, but Aaron Rodgers, wherever he goes, he brings drama. It seems like he brings teams down a bit nowadays, and I just think he's older and he's so not mobile, Will. That's the biggest thing.
Sure.
There's not an offensive line right here that would be protective enough for him to navigate in the pocket at all.
Crazy thing is, Devontae Adams had 1,000 yards last year.
And you would never have known it.
He had 854 yards in actually the 11 games he played with Rodgers. They were just so irrelevant.
Right.
That like a tree fell in the forest and no one heard it.
Right. And you'd think at that, I mean, that's funny you said that because I would not have actually guessed he had 1,000. Maybe 800 or so.
Well, I think the part of it that's significant out of that is, though, that like you got Rodgers, you got his friends, and you win 5-12. So
absolutely.
I have no interest in that for the Titans. It is a 1 out of 10. It is, I think, the worst possible option for the Titans because the drama that comes around Rodgers is always going to outweigh what you get on the field. And I think Aaron Rodgers would make this team worse. I really do. Maybe not worse than what Will Levis gave you on the field, but I think everything around it, everything in that locker room, I think he undermines coaches and general managers wherever he goes. You're trying to build up continuity and quote-unquote collaboration in that front office and in that coaching staff. Aaron Rodgers is going to come in and make it all about himself. 28 touchdowns, 11 picks last year. He was sacked 40 times. The numbers aren't terrible. I mean, he had just shy of 4,000 yards and completed 63% of his passes, but that was a really bad football team because of his influence on the football team.
Well, I felt like I watched him more on the Pat McAfee show than I did playing football.
Honestly. Then there is Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. I feel like these two we could do together because Art Rooney, the Steelers, they come out this week and say, we want one of the two of them to likely come back. To me, that points to Justin Fields going back and being the Steelers quarterback, and then them looking at another option not named Russell Wilson, simply because Russell Wilson kind of at the end really fell apart in terms of that offense. He was fine. The offense was not. And he is the much older option, obviously, compared to Justin Fields. So let's start with Fields. On a scale of 1 to 10, how interested are you for the Titans?
I'm pretty interested. I'm putting me at like an 8 for this one. And that might be the most interest that I have currently at this point when I really went down and broke down the quarterbacks last night. Fields, I understand, played in just 10 games, right? He made 6 starts for the Steelers this past season, threw for over 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, and an interception. He completed 65.8% of his passes, and he also rushed for 289 yards and 5 touchdowns. Now, the thing that I like about Fields at this point of his career, he's still really young. And I think that you still didn't get to see his full body of work with Pittsburgh last year because of the Russell Wilson situation. I honestly believe he could have improved even more at that point. And I think when you're looking at what Tennessee wants right now is, you heard Mike Borgonzi say, you know, all these things count, accuracy, a good arm, but we also want some type of a quarterback nowadays that's mobile, that has that athletic ability. And when I look down this list of free agents, Justin Fields is definitely a guy I would put in there that they would probably be interested in because he is a little bit younger, because he's more of a mobile quarterback. Right. And you can give a shot, too, at Brian Callahan continuing to develop a Justin Fields type of quarterback.
I am also an 8 out of 10 on Justin Fields. The 6 starts last season, I think you could lean into being a run-first offense. And I think Brian Callahan could really make that the centerpiece of this entire scheme. Is he willing to do that? Probably not. I think he could, but I do think that he gives you the most upward mobility. He is as young and moldable of probably any of these guys because he is the youngest option that you're going to have out of all of these quarterbacks other than Levis. But even Levis is the same age as Justin Fields.
Right.
At 26. So it's a copycat league. Teams are going to be looking for the next Sam Darnold. Mm-hmm. I know Justin Fields and Sam Darnold are very different players as prospects in terms of what they do well, but I do think that he is the best of the mid-20s quarterback options. No doubt.
And Will, on that note too, I get a lot of people, and I understand this, guys, and say, and it's not just in the chat today, the FNM Big Chat, it's people that I talk to, out on social media, saying that the system doesn't fit Justin Fields. That talking of Brian Callahan's system fitting Justin Fields. I don't really know if we even understand yet exactly what Callahan is looking to do, because we're hearing Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker say we want a quarterback that can, be athletic and not just sit in the pocket and throw the ball, right?
Sure. I mean, it's Cincinnati. That's what Callahan wants to do, right? Like it's get the ball out quick, timing. They want a Jamar Chase. They want a Tyler Boyd in his prime. They want the ball to get out quickly and be thrown on time. And they did not have a quarterback that could do that last year, so we didn't really see it.
And one more thing I'll say about a younger free agent, Will, is that he wants to develop guys no matter what. Brian Callahan wants to get his hands on a younger quarterback. Even if I think it's a bridge quarterback, he would probably more so like to do that than somebody like Russell Wilson, who is already set in his ways completely.
So what's your Russell Wilson interest level?
First of all, it's not a lot. It's probably a 4, maybe a 5. Well, I think he's going to the Raiders. I honestly have a feeling that he might reunite with Pete Carroll, and I know that all went down a little weird when Russell Wilson left the Seahawks, but we never really know what went behind the scenes in that. And I do think they still have a relationship, and
Interesting.
they could be looking at that as a possibility. I also heard that the Steelers more so wanted to keep, from the articles I've read at least, wanted to keep Russell Wilson over Justin Fields. So that will be interesting to see if he's even available. He's older quarterback, though, Will. I just feel like I just said he's set in his ways. I think he always regresses a little bit at the end of a season because his body has taken all of those hits, and he's not the guy that he used to be that can hold up from the start of the season down.
Yeah.
And remember, he didn't play all the games even last year.
Is 6-5 as a starter last season. 63% completion percentage for Russell Wilson last year. 16 touchdowns to only 5 picks. He took 33 sacks. He's not as mobile as he was early in his career. His quarterback rating was good, 95.6, probably a little above average, maybe right at average. Honestly, last year for a Steelers offense that was not overly dynamic. 3 points lower than his final season in Denver, his quarterback rating a season ago. So he kind of is what he is at this point. I'm a 5.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't be upset at Russell Wilson for a season, for 2 seasons. But ultimately, I just don't think you are in the position to go get a late 30s quarterback that is that new to you, that's going to offer you middle-of-the-road NFL quarterback play. However, I have talked myself into another favorite option. Do people realize how good Derek Carr was last year when he was healthy?
I don't think people did because of that.
68% completion percentage. He was 5-5 as a starter for the Saints. 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Derek Carr's quarterback rating was 101 last season. He only took 8 sacks. He has won 7+ games every year since 2019, except last season's injury-shortened season. Derek Carr is a machine at least going 7-10, going 8-9. That is the next step for this franchise. Being able to, Bert talks about it all the time, you got to lose little or lose small before you can win small, and then you can win big. And this team needs to learn how to get back into games and win at least 7 or 8 of them, to be quite honest with you. So $30 million salary in 2025 becomes fully guaranteed on the 3rd day of the league year in March for Derek Carr. There is not a guarantee that he's going to be available. Cutting him with a post-June 1st designation for New Orleans would result in $11.4 million dead money charge in 2025, with another $28 million hitting the cap in 2026. He's got a $10 million fully guaranteed roster bonus that's due in March. The Saints are in total cap hell, but let's be honest, if they want to keep him badly enough, they will find a way to do it. They'll find a way to keep him. I am an 8 out of 10 for Derek Carr because he has worked with Brian Callahan before, because he's coming off a pretty good season in 10 games. And when he is healthy, he will put you in enough games to where you're going to learn if Callahan can coach. You're going to learn if Denard Wilson can coach a defense. You're going to learn if your offensive line's any good because he's going to get the ball out on time. You're going to make some really critical observations about this team because Derek Carr is going to put you in some games. I'm an 8 out of 10 on Derek Carr.
And Will, I would probably be that high, but the injuries always just kind of are in the back of my mind with him. And I do understand at this point when you're hitting over 30, you're going to have that risk of a quarterback who is going to get beat up, right? He had the hand injury this last year in 2024. He had multiple fractures in his left hand. He had a concussion. Obviously, that was back in 2023. He's had a throwing shoulder injury before back in 2023. So he has a history of some injuries that's put him out of games. And that's the only thing I hesitate on, because if you are going to bring a guy like this over, and I agree with you on all those fronts, I think he could be a great guy to help develop a quarterback. He knows the staff. I mean, he even had Ziegler was over there.
Dave Ziegler,
the new assistant GM was over with the Saints this last year too, so knows of him and his leadership ability. All of that is great. The only hesitation for me, Will, is the injuries, but sometimes you have to roll the dice on that. So put me at a 6.
He played 10 games last season, played a full season in 2023, missed 2 games in 2022 when he was a Pro Bowler for Vegas, and played the whole season in 2021 where he was 10-7 as a starter that season.
I think this is my perfect storm for Titans quarterback for a couple reasons. One, if you can get him cheap enough coming off of this deal, a situation like Russell Wilson had last year where he's willing to take a 1 year, I'll play this out so I can get paid next year deal, that would be beneficial. I also feel like the Titans free agent strategy is going to change under Chad Brinker, and they're going to be playing for compensatory picks a little bit more, so they're going to target cap casualties, cut candidates from other teams. If he is cut, he will not count towards compensatory picks. The other thing is, if he is injured, that doesn't matter as much to me as when he is on the field, and when he is on the field, we'll get to see the ball pushed down the field. He was 10th last year in yards per attempt. He made MVS look like a competent wide receiver when Chris Olave and what's the other cat? Rashid Shaheed went down super early. I love his ability to make those guys successful down the field. So if you can bring NWI back, maybe unlock Calvin Ridley down the field, I feel like this is the guy that can do the most for you while also expending the least amount of resources.
And that's a team that lost 7 straight games at one point, but it is hard to forget, or it's easy to forget how good they were the first 2 weeks of the season. We're talking about the Saints. It's like, wow, surprise team. Mm-hmm. Obviously, 2 games doesn't get you hired. It gets you fired when you're only good for 2 games in this league. But I don't think people understand. I didn't understand. I looked at his stats and was like, whoa.
Sure.
Obviously, stats aren't everything, but he was better than I expected looking at a lot of the box score stuff.
Yeah.
What's your take? 615-737-1045. Who are you not interested in? Who do you like? React to what we have given you in terms of our interest levels at quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. 615-737-1045. We'll get 1045. We'll get more of your reaction next. Hey, it's Will Bowling. You're probably looking for cars and you see the words buy here, pay here, and it makes you think maybe not a place that I want to go. And look, I get it. Most of those dealers, they come with certain reputations. And I'm here to tell you there is one place you can go. That's Nolanville Road Auto Mart. They are different for a few simple reasons. They have been doing business in Nashville for 61 years. They're Nashville natives that sell only clean title cars under 12 grand. So if you're new to town and you're looking for a place to trust, they've got you. Maybe you are looking for that first car for the 16-year-old, that new driver in your family. Well, hey, they do that as well. Don't even need to take my word for it. The Google reviews are excellent. That's always saying something for a car dealership. Check them out. Flexibility, transparency, honesty. That's why I recommend Nolanville Road Auto Mart. Give them a call at 615-242-1279. One location at Nolansville Road, close to Thompson Lane. Give my friends at Nolansville Road Auto Mart a call at 615-242-1279. Wrapping up hour one on your Wednesday morning, RKW. Coming up in a half hour, we will go down to Mobile. And Ramon Foster will join us, tell us what he saw yesterday on the practice field at the Reese's Senior Bowl. Taking your calls on Titans free agent quarterback options. Who do you not want? 615-737-1045. Tucker in Lebanon leads us off. Hey, Tucker.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, so I was just thinking about one quarterback that's in the free agent market this year that nobody's really been talking about. And, he's not as talented as Derek Carr, but he does have a connection with Brian Callahan, and that's Andy Dalton. Bringing him from Carolina, as a free agent. He might not, like I said, he might not be as talented. He could be a cheap option if Derek Carr, if somehow the Raiders the Saints structure that contract a little bit better,
right?
Then and they end up keeping him, then I don't know. And if they were to get a Derek Carr or if they were to get an Andy Dalton, this might be crazy, but I might almost be okay with drafting a Shador, a
right.
Ward, and this never happens. But having them sit for maybe not the whole season, but maybe like a Michael Penix situation where it's almost the whole season, let them sit, let them learn, because that is extremely beneficial to quarterbacks. And, we've seen this movie over and over again of throwing quarterbacks who so many people say are not ready in there, and they just don't succeed. So, yeah. So that's my thought. I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you, Tucker.
Thanks, Tucker.
Appreciate the call. I like the line of thinking and looking for people connected to Brian Callahan.
Right.
Kayla, the problem is that Andy Dalton's numbers aren't much different than Mason Rudolph's from this past season. He was 1-4 as a starter in Carolina. He had 7 touchdowns, 6 picks, 82.0 quarterback rating. He just wasn't very good this past season.
Yeah, and remember, I think in his situation too, Bryce Young was the starter, and because it got so bad so quickly, they did finally decide to sit Bryce Young for a minute, which, by the way, I think actually did benefit Bryce Young. It didn't necessarily benefit Carolina overall, though, as a team in terms of winning. You're right, Will, because it's not like they were winning many games. You said one game there is what he was able to muster together, and then they went back to Bryce Young eventually. But I think that's what I look at with this team. You kind of still need to win games here at the situation they're in for Brian Callahan, but you also have to technically maybe develop a quarterback too. It's a weird place to be in. It's like a rock and a hard place, I feel like, this year for the Titans, no matter what they do. I just don't think Andy would be the first option of mine to be able to bridge that and win games.
He's a 2 or 3 out of 10 for me. Andy Dalton. He'll be 38 next season. The only positive on Andy Dalton is he's a really nice guy. I mean, honestly, if you're talking about that is his reputation around the league. Nice guy, Andy Dalton. He's going to come in. He's going to be good to your young quarterback that you bring in. If Andy Dalton is the guy they bring in, I think it's because they are willing to start either Cam Ward or Shador Sanders within the first month of the season. And it's, maybe Andy Dalton starts a couple games, but we understand what this season's about. It's about making our number 1 overall pick quarterback play better, and that's what we're going to do by October, right? Mm-hmm. Let's go to James in Knoxville. Up next. Hey, James.
Hey, good morning. Why is nobody talking about this? Should be everywhere. Aaron Rodgers.
And we just did talk about it.
Nashville. I just missed it. I guess I was at home. But for me, it's either Rodgers or a rookie or nothing. Andy Dalton is disgusting.
Why do you want Rodgers? I'm curious.
He came on toward the end of last season. He's going to sell tickets. Let's all be honest. So right now we've got a crowd problem in Nashville. I'm from Knoxville, and anytime I go up, I see the majority of other team fans out there in the stands, and it's bothering me. And we got a new stadium coming in 2 years or so. So we need to sell tickets. We need somebody who knows how to play the position and doesn't freak out when there's some pressure, because our O-line is going to need some work. It's either Rodgers or a rookie. Forget all these other scrubs. These Derek Carr, soft as baby poo. I don't want anything to do with those guys.
Thank you, James.
I think James might be Aaron Rodgers' agent. Secretly.
Maybe.
James under disguise.
He's a 5-12 quarterback. He's not that guy anymore. He's fine. He's just, Aaron Rodgers is not the winner anymore that a lot of you think that he still is.
Yeah. I mean, can he still throw a ball? Yeah. I mean, can he still get some wins? Sure.
Can he move? No.
No. And that's the thing. I mean, he was talking about an O-line that's, we can't really trust yet. And he doesn't, get shaken up. But that doesn't mean he doesn't take sacks. I mean, he's not mobile. He can't really move anymore. So, again, I go back to the comments they made about wanting a quarterback that can be able to move a little bit. I think because they know the line's not going to be fixed overnight. And I do still think that pertains to whatever bridge quarterback you bring in.
Right.
They can't just stand back there and take sacks.
Right. I don't know. The numbers look fine on paper for Rodgers, I guess. They also lost almost all of those games where he played well. And you've got to think, too, how many times is a quarterback cooking against cover 4 when a defense is just keeping everything in front of them and not letting you throw it over their heads? Right? Like, the Jets are 5-12 this past season. If you don't want soft Derek Carr, well, he won the same amount of games in nearly half or just over half the starts that Rodgers made this season. 615-737-1045 is our number. I was curious real quick, Daniel Jones, the only guy on my list we didn't get to. Scale of 1 to 10 quickly.
It's weird for me, Will. I just feel like I don't even know who he is at this point. So give me like a...
It's Vanilla Vic.
Yeah, give me a... We know he can't use his legs when he wants to.
He is the epitome of sneaky athletic.
Give me 5 because I think that Bryan Callahan could look at him as an intriguing guy saying, no one's really developed Daniel Jones yet. He hasn't hit what he could hit as a quarterback. Yeah. So possibly?
I'd say a 6. I could see Bryan Callahan getting along really well with a guy who went to Duke.
Oh, well.
I mean, that's an overgeneralization, but knowing what we know about Daniel Jones, he's a pretty smart guy.
Smart.
He's been mentored by David Cutcliffe. He has the Manning stamp of approval. He's played in this league. He's 28 going into next season. I'm a 6 out of 10 on him. He fits more of what Tannehill was when the Titans got Ryan Tannehill than anyone else
but young
on this list.
Right.
Well, about the same. 28 years old.
Was Tannehill 28?
He's about 28, 29. Yeah. He was late 20s.
Sorry, Tanny, I just aged
when he came
you.
here in 2019. 2019 was 6 years ago.
Golly.
I know.
Where does the time go?
I know. 615-737-1045. Yesterday, I thought Bryan Callahan made a very interesting comment about the draftable quarterbacks for the Tennessee Titans with the number 1 overall pick. And we'll talk about that next.
What's going on? 7:01. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Day one of Senior Bowl is in the books. Titans Radio, Zach Lyons, football and other F words, and Ramon Foster down in Mobile doing a great job. Make sure you follow them on X for all the drills, standouts, winners and losers, everything in between from the Senior Bowl. Ramon is going to join the show at 7:20 with his day one observations. Bryan in the 9 o'clock hour doing the same. Saints coaching search starts to whittle down, but not by their choice. Both Mike McCarthy and Cliff Kingsbury would rather enjoy their offseason, and in Cliff Kingsbury's case, return to the team that he took from 4 wins to an NFC championship appearance. They have held second interviews with 3 known candidates. One would be Moore, and Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver, and New York Giants offensive coordinator Mike Kafka. Moore's second interview was Monday, a day after the Eagles erupted for 55 points in the NFC Championship, and he is thought to be the favorite. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
RKW 104.5 The Zone rolls into hour number 2 on your Wednesday morning. 7 a.m. in Music City, 615-737-1045. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll check in with Ramon Foster down at the Reese's Senior Bowl. In hour number 3, the Titans brass talked about the quarterback position yesterday, and Mike Borgonzi expanded on what he talked about with the quote-unquote nervous system that the Titans are looking for at the QB position. Some very interesting comments coming from Mobile as Brian Callahan and Mike Borgonzi met with the media yesterday. 615-737-1045. Kayla Anderson and Will Bowling with you here in studio. So Brian Callahan yesterday talks with the media and talks about the number 1 overall pick. This audio courtesy of Brayton Gall of 440 Sports, as Brian Callahan says how different this opportunity is than what his boss in Cincinnati and Zach Taylor had after one bad season.
It's hard to articulate, to be honest. You get to a certain point where you feel very comfortable with all the work you've done, and that's really for every draft pick. But it's hard to like pinpoint the moment. It's just sort of accumulation of work and sort of unturning every stone you can unturn, and you hope you find the information you need. Sometimes you don't always, and there's a little bit of faith in it too, that you're doing the right thing at the right time. But it's mostly just the totality of the work. I mean, it takes months between now and the actual time to pick, unless there's a scenario, again, like in Cincinnati, we knew we were going to take Joe Burrow pretty early. That's a little bit different story. That's not what this draft is right now for us. And there's a lot of possibilities where we sit, a lot of good players, and we're going to have to do a work on all of them. Really, every scenario is potentially on the table, and when we get to that point, we'll know it, but it does take a lot of work to get there.
I think if you had truth serum with Cincinnati Bengals executives, they would have told you that by the end of January, they knew they were taking Joe Burrow with the number 1 overall pick a couple of years ago. I think it's interesting to me from Brian Callahan that all options really do appear to be on the table, because I feel like Cam Ward has started to break away a little bit from some draft analysts as the number 1 guy. I think what Brian Callahan is telling you is the process is going to matter to differentiate those 2 top quarterbacks.
I just think that in that situation with Cincinnati, when Brian Callahan was there, like he said, Joe Burrow was the clear option, I think, for everybody who, if they needed a quarterback that year, he was the guy. I mean, there was not a lot of negative things taken out of his entire final year at LSU. He was a championship quarterback. He was a leader. There was a lot of upside to him, and I think that he was drafted, the draft analysts put him up there on a pedestal as well. Whereas you look at these 2 quarterbacks, Will, And there are still some questions about him. First of all, each of them had success in their careers, and they were both at different places. But they did not go win a championship either, right? They didn't take it to the next level in terms of college. And there are analysts out there right now with mixed reviews. That's why we're so confused too, is you can have your strong opinion on who you want, that or the other, but none of them are really getting that number one overall pick. There are still a lot of other prospects that these analysts are putting on over these quarterbacks. And usually there is just a quarterback that's number one, and that's not the situation here. So I think that's also why you see the Titans doing their due diligence and saying we're going to do that, because there's not a clear favorite.
There's not. And I think if that is what you take away from, if you take anything away from Bryan Callahan there, it is that. Don't get too attached to one guy in January, because there is not one guy worthy of getting that attached to. The combine is going to matter. The meetings that these teams have with Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward is going to matter. There is not one guy based on tape alone that is head and shoulders over the other. Both have some strengths, both have a lot of weaknesses, and both probably are not going to need to start week one of the 2025 season. I think that's really all we know at this point. So that's what Bryan Callahan is telling you, is that there is not a clear-cut guy. And so much so that we are surveying the other options and looking at the trades and at the Abdul Carters, the Travis Hunters of the world, and things like that.
Yeah, and I have brought this up because I just understand, I really do, truly feel like fans want a quarterback, and they want something exciting. And I get it. I understand. But it really has to be what they're looking for long term, even if they sit in the start. They have to long-term be the answer. And I think that even if you hear in the next couple of months all the excitement around the quarterbacks, or one quarterback in particular that the Titans start to go towards, just don't get your hopes up. I just don't want people to get disappointed, even if there is all of this talk about the Titans taking one, because they have to also raise their stock of that number one overall pick, because they're trying to do the best business possible for this team long term, and it might not be a quarterback.
See, I'm proud of the fan base, because I do feel like trading back has been option one. I really do. I feel like that's what I've heard more than anything. I want to put it to a poll, because I am curious.
I am too, actually.
At Ramon Kayla Will, I'm going to say, as of today, what would you rather do? And put two options: trade back or draft Sanders or Ward. So that'll be up till the end of the show at Ramon Kayla Will on Twitter, because I legitimately don't know. People I talk to, friends of mine, other fans, I feel like are more in the trade back camp just because of the two quarterbacks you have available to you. But I could be wrong.
And I'm getting the opposite. And it's funny because we all, we're all interacting with different fans, and I'm getting more of like the Shedeur or Cam, and people are pumped about those two being possible candidates for the Titans.
Let's go to the phone, 615-737-1045. Eric is in Nashville up first. Hey, Eric.
Hey, how y'all doing this morning?
Good, Eric.
All right. I'm thinking Matthew Stafford. The other guy that answered, he said he's not free agent, but I just looked it up. He will be free agent this season.
Correct.
No,
so
he won't be a free agent this season. They could get rid of him if they wanted to, but he's got 2 years left in his contract.
Oh, it's because online it says it's free agent. Okay, then
No.
I don't know who then. What's up?
Yeah. Well, there could be a trade with him that could be possible, right? But that might be giving up a lot because he still clearly can get it done.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate the call. They could still release him. So if you release Derek Carr, if you release Matthew Stafford after June 1st, you would save $23 million against the cap for this upcoming season and have essentially $24 million cap charges over the next 2 years. $26 million next year, and then $22 million more in 2026.
I think he'll be there again.
Paul in Nashville up next. Hey, Paul.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, Paul.
Morning.
We need to trade back. The Titans have so many holes. One guy, especially a quarterback, out of this draft pick is not worth the number one pick. They got holes in the offensive line still. It's been 7 years since they've had a good offensive line. Defensive line, they need a defensive edge rusher, and they got so many holes. they just need to trade back and get picks. If Derek Carr's available, grab him. But other than that, they won 3 games for a reason, and all wasn't Will Levis's fault. And that's all I got.
Where are you willing to move back to, Paul, real quick? What's the last possible pick you'd be willing to move back to in the first round?
I'd go back as far as 9 if you get enough picks to fill in positions.
Sure.
It just depends. But I remember when Cincinnati picked Akili Smith first round, and he was terrible. You don't need another crappy number 1 pick.
Right. Fair enough.
They just need so many holes filled that quarterback coming out of the draft with everyone has questions on, might as well keep Will Levis if that's the case. It's like the Titans have won 3 games for a reason.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate the call.
Yeah, I get it. Long term, it is really hard to sit here and say, hey, this is going to be a rebuilding process and we got to think long term. It's not going to happen overnight. But realistically, that's what it is. The only other thing I think about is you need a partner to dance with, first and foremost. They've also said time and time again, we can't pass up on generational talent. I think when you trade back to 9 even, you're kind of getting past a lot of that generational talent that's on the board right now. There's just not a lot of it in this draft.
You'd have to really overpay me for going back that far. I'd be willing to go back to 7. Okay. The Jets at 7 are interesting to me because they don't have a significant amount of cap space. I don't think the Raiders are a trade partner because they've got money to spend. I think the Raiders are going after a big money free agent quarterback. I think that is the Raiders' way. And I think they want Sam Darnold. I know Russell Wilson would make sense as well. I think they want the best option possible. They hit on some young draft picks a season ago. They've got some young talent. They've got Brock Bowers. But I think the Jets at 7, a team that needs a quarterback but doesn't have a lot of money to pay him and has an owner that is known for being very aggressive and who might say, I want my guy to put on billboards. Yep. And I want New York's next big young quarterback to get ahead of the Giants within that process. 7 is where I would go back. And at that point, you're either drafted a wide receiver or right tackle. You name it. You got options at that point. But Buck and Lucas were talking about this yesterday. And Lucas made the point of he's not concerned about having trade partners. I'm honestly concerned.
Well, I am.
I am concerned that nobody likes Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward enough to give you anything close to what number 1 overall pick value deserves.
I'll just say this. I pretty much heard somebody say, hey, look, I feel like the Titans would really have to sell these quarterbacks if we were going to,
No, yeah, we've both said it.
It's just...
We need to hear that these quarterbacks are awesome.
You better put out a marketing...
We need the value to start going up. Totally.
Put out a marketing plan.
I am worried that, you're essentially looking at another... I don't think these quarterbacks are E.J. Manuel, Geno Smith bad from, the Eric Fisher 2013 draft in Kansas City, but I don't think they're that much better, to be honest with you.
I just don't think either of them, and again, big Cam Ward fan here, think he will be a good quarterback one day. I just don't think they're ready from the get-go in a system that is lacking a lot of other pieces.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
On Twitter, at Ramon Kayla Will. As of today, what would you rather do? Trade back or draft Sanders or Ward? Early, but 84% of you in the trade back camp so far.
Look at that. Okay.
So let your voice be heard there at Ramon Kayla Will on Twitter. And coming up, you will hear the voice of Ramon Foster. He joins us from Mobile at the Senior Bowl coming up next. What's going on? It's Will Bowling telling you about my friends at Lee Company. Hey, is your water heater not heating? Maybe your sink is leaking or the drain is clogged. I know you're going through that list in the back of your head right now, things that aren't working at home. Well, hey, available 24/7, 365, our expert friends at Lee Company. They have you covered for all your plumbing needs. The best part about working with Lee Company, you just hand them the list. They take care of it. And they're there at a moment's notice as well. They also got great offers for you, like this one. Right now, you can enjoy $30 off a plumbing service call for a limited time. You just got to contact Lee Company today, 615-567-1000. or go online to leecompany.com for an appointment to take care of your home's plumbing from top to bottom. Again, that's $30 off your next plumbing service call at leecompany.com. Give them a call, 615-567-1000 for an appointment to take care of your home's plumbing from top to bottom. Online at leecompany.com. That's Lee Company, all you need. RKW rolls on hour number 2 on this fine Wednesday morning. Hope you're having a good start to your day. Kayla Anderson and Will Bowling in studio with you as we head to Mobile, and we are joined by Ramon Foster from the Reese's Senior Bowl 2025. Day 1 done, day 2 getting started. How we doing, Mo?
Man, we're good. I just want to say, if you hear me stop for a second, I'm flipping through my notes and stuff like that because I got a lot from yesterday, okay?
A lot of notes.
And
All right.
a lot of stuff to look forward to today. So as much as I can give you all of it. It's just a matter of me finding it as quick as I possibly can. But a really good first day yesterday, y'all. Really good first day.
Hey, if you just want to word for word, verbatim, read everything you had, like Kayla and I can go across the street, grab coffee, and come
please.
back.
Let me go blow
we'll
my
go
nose.
get breakfast. Like, you can just take the whole 20 minutes and just, here's Senior Bowl thoughts with Ramon Foster.
I know, man. Y'all know me. I'm a talker. All you got to do is pull this string in my back, and I'm ready to go. Call me Tickle Me Elmo is what you can call me.
You're in the right line of work. You were in the right line of work. The number one thing that stood out to you yesterday, Ramon, was what? Whether it's one player, one position group that looked good, one group that looked bad. I know there are a lot of people that did not see great things from Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart yesterday. That was a common observation. What is the biggest thing you took away from yesterday's Senior Bowl practices?
That there is a lot of mid-first to fourth, maybe fifth round talent. It is a lot. It is a lot. You remember last year we were having a conversation, hey, you better get your first 30 picks in, and that's where your for sure guys are. I don't think that's the case this year. There are guys here, and I'm not sure if it's the COVID year to have guys in school a little bit longer or the fact that some of these underclassmen are here, but you will find some quality in this draft and like not just quality, right, but like guys that can play football. Like it's one thing to get an athlete, oh, man, this guy's a 4-3 guy. Oh, this D lineman is running a 4-4. No, you're actually getting guys that you've heard about that can actually make plays, and they're doing it in this setting down here. So that is my one thing that I took, because I'll give it, for instance, you heard me yesterday speak about, hey, the D-line is probably going to dominate, and they're going to be good, and we're going to be speaking about all these guys, and there was a few of them that did. But the offensive line surprisingly held their own. And I would almost say, if we're giving percentages, man, I'd give it 51-49 offensive line yesterday. Like, that's how competitive it was. But not just that. The DBs versus wide receivers, the linebackers were here and there, like, making plays. You saw every position make good quality plays. And to your point, what you open up with Jalen Milroe and the quarterbacks, like, Coach Mack, hit me with the, hey, don't be an instant evaluator. So I got to temper myself.
IE.
And also others. Yeah, don't be an IE, instant evaluator. So it was, he explained it to me like, all right, whatever the quarterbacks did in day one, just you got to realize their timing with the wide receivers. The new football that they're throwing with, because it is a bigger football. The plays are very simple, so the defensive players can really break on the football and stuff like that. That's somewhat what you saw yesterday. It was a little bit more inconsistency from those guys, but I expect to see day 2 be better from them, just simply because timing. Some of those guys, potentially stayed after and threw extra with the wide receivers and just figuring out the plays, and the nerves of not honestly embarrassing the wide receivers too. That was a part of it also. You got to realize, like, these guys are quicker probably than some of the dudes that they play with, or slower. Right. So finding out what's the sweet spot for those guys. So that's what I ended up looking at yesterday. So the quarterbacks, no, did not show, but day 2 is where they should shine.
Was Jalen Milroe, or were Jalen Milroe and Jackson Dart as bad as social media is telling us?
Yeah, they were.
Fair enough.
They were. I saw Jalen Milroe not get rid of the ball when you needed him to. Underthrew some guys, which has been one of his things that he's had to deal with in his career. I know, just depth perception, if you want to call it that. And then Jackson Dart also was one of those guys yesterday, man, that was rolling out and just sailed one high over a tall wide receiver head. Like, those are the types of things that you saw yesterday. And also, too, quarterback from Memphis had a duck that was
Seth Hennigan.
But again, yes, he had a bad duck that was caught. But here's the thing about it. Again, we're talking about a real live reps with a defense and a bigger football. I'm not saying I don't know if he got big hands or not, but those are the types of things that you're seeing. It's almost like the first day of training camp all over again. If you're asking me to pull from the pot and name a quarterback 3, I won't. I can't. That's what I would tell you.
Ramon Foster joining us from the Senior Bowl down in Mobile. First day, I should say, of Senior Bowl practice was yesterday, entering day 2 today. I was reading through some notes from Zach Lyons, too, and he had mentioned with the national team practice yesterday that he was disappointed in some of those wide receivers that we were speaking highly of coming into this. What did you kind of hear about those wide receivers and why it might have been a difficult first day for the bigger names like Restrepo, Bryant, Higgins, et cetera?
Yeah, yesterday, man, I think Restrepo is one of those guys that is pretty quick, and he can play football. So, again, you know how you have that conversation, Kayla, well, like, this guy's not a great practice guy.
Right.
But he's a gamer. Like, Restrepo's got a resume behind him that says he can play football, but he was right. Restrepo did not have a good day yesterday as far as, separating himself the way we've seen others do with these type of settings right there. But I'm not going to deny what I saw yesterday because, again, I will say this. I think some of the quarterbacks got to help the wide receivers look good, too. So I'll blame a little bit on both of those guys, but I did expect to see a little bit more out of him, man. And just across the board with a few of them, I'll say this. The ones that did bad, I probably didn't pay attention to. The ones that really stood out to me, though, I'll just name you a few of them, well, a couple of them real quick. Jack Best, I'm sure y'all have heard about him, man, from TCU. He actually did have a good day. Not just that, a big, tall athlete, man. And the story behind him is, I'm sure y'all guys know or have heard of it. His brother Tiger Besh was one of the people that was killed in the New Orleans truck massacre down there, the terrorist attack that happened. He was a Princeton wide receiver that was down in New Orleans as that situation was going on. He will be wearing his brother's jersey number, and the entire teams down here will also be wearing decals on the helmets in remembrance of him. And it's super cool. Jim Nagy was just on with us down here at Titans Radio, and he told us Tom Rinaldi is coming down here to do a special on the Best family because of the Super Bowls in New Orleans, speaking about his brother and stuff like that. But he's not a charity case either, Kayla. You know, he's one of those guys, to me, that he was committed to LSU. No, he actually was committed to play at Vanderbilt. Then he went to LSU and later transferred to TCU. He hadn't had a crazy just year of numbers, but he's a guy in this last year that had over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns at TCU, and you guys know that made Coach Mack very proud. He just yelled frog as he was. But here's the thing. He's an SEC guy. He just happened to transfer a couple of times to finally have a landing place at TCU, and he's actually balled out, man. He's no charity case on being down here. There was a couple of footballs that went high on him that he was able to just snag out of the air. He's quick. He's long. I see him as a guy, again, I'm not sure where he's going to land in the draft, whether he's, 4th or 5th round, but he made some heads turn yesterday because he was just snatching stuff out of the air. Also, man, I know I said wide receivers, but I got a tight end for you guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Big day for them.
Well, here's the trend behind it, too. Okay, Restrepo, we say he can play football. He's out of Miami. The other guy that I'm going to bring up is out of Miami, too. Tight end Elijah Arroyo had a day. I think he had a better day than Mason Taylor, the tight end out of LSU yesterday, than he did. He's big. He's about 6'4", 6'5". They got him listed at about like 245. He looks big, and it's probably just his shoulder pads. If I'm not mistaken, wearing long sleeves or something yesterday. He just looked big, but like he's one of those guys that you see him and you want to say to yourself, all right, he should be able to be a blocker on the end of the line of scrimmage. I think that's something most college tight ends have to work on. And when you look at his route running, you want a guy like him on your team. I thought he had an elite day yesterday. And one-on-ones versus safeties, one-on-ones versus linebackers. He found separation every single rep that I saw him run. So it was actually really good to see guys that you didn't have necessarily on your list go out and make plays for you. So Burt gave me a lot of homework to look at today also because he's one of those guys that loves the draft, okay? So some dudes I'll be watching. I'll see if I can report back to you guys. Is another TCU wide receiver, Savion Williams. Pat Bryan, who's Titan Radio, is currently interviewing right now. See what kind of information I get from you out of Illinois. And also Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. Again, the Titans need wide receiver help at some point. These guys have some real good quality down here in Mobile, for sure.
Well, the Titans also need a right tackle. And I think what's weird about this draft is you're seeing a lot of maybe potential left tackles available. And I know that Alabama A&M's offensive tackle Carson Vincent stood out yesterday. I mean, I turned on the NFL Network, and he's the first guy I saw that just looked different to me, like stood out, and then I watched him. I'm like, this guy's pretty impressive. But what's the realistic fact that this Titans, staff could take a left tackle and put him at right, or maybe take JC, put him at right, and draft a left tackle?
Listen, Kayla, Carson Vincent, get used to that name because I think he's going to catapult up the draft boards. I don't know if that means he's going from a 6th rounder to a 4th or to a 3rd, but I'll tell you this. Out of Alabama A&M, he has the size. Mm-hmm. He has the attitude. He has just everything that you want to see packaged up. Bert read me a quote yesterday from him, and I actually looked it up for myself. I'm not going to read it on air right now. But he pretty much told me, you guys are down here just to mess around with football. I live this sport. I love this game, and I need it. Jim Nagy gave us a little nugget on him. Also, Carson Vincent is who I'm speaking of out of Alabama A&M, and just said, his passion is probably a little bit, navigated because he lost his mom a couple of years ago. So it's him and his dad, and when you see him on the field, he's angry. But Jim Nagy explained to us, he's a guy that literally has a switch. Once he crosses those white lines, you get nothing from him. He's just the perfect gentleman and everything that you want in a football player. And Jim was saying, they weren't proud to have him here. It's like he needed to be here in Mobile. Wow. And yesterday, I'm not sure if you guys saw, but Teron Davenport tweeted out a one-on-one rep they've been doing at the end of practices for 25 push-ups. And here he is in the middle of the field against Shamar Stewart, the DN or edge player out of Texas A&M, SEC player. Hey, I'll be honest with you, we can say it because of the competition. He absolutely dogged Shamar Stewart, okay? And just let him know it, and that's what you're looking for out of those type of guys that are coming from lower levels. I'll bring up another guy too, Kayla, that had a good day. Bert, he called him out, Kayla and Will, about a month ago. There's a 5'10", there's a 5'10" guard here. Yep. Jim Nagy said he's 5'10" and some change out of North Carolina. He's formerly from Coastal Carolina. And Jim said that he was one of those guys that a lot of the regional national scouts were talking is like, hey, he's a dude that we're going to try to recruit hard and try to get him in a position where we can get him in training camp because they know he had talent. They just wasn't sure what kind of player he's going to be at 5'10", 270 pounds. Well, he said after yesterday's practice, those scouts and front office guys were calling him like, hey, we're glad we saw him because now everybody see what we saw, and there is no longer hiding Willie Lampkin. He has potentially made himself a draft pick. Now, again, I don't know if he's going to be an NFL starter, but the way he played yesterday, I don't know if there was many reps that he lost. I may have seen one rep that he lost, and he's made himself flexible too because he played left guard at North Carolina, but he also snapped the football his sophomore year at Coastal Carolina also. So he's had flexibility of playing guard and center. He's quick. He said description from Jim Nagy was he's got abnormally long arms and a big old butt. So he's got the ability to play the position. It's a matter of will his body hold up and what team is going to take a chance on him. But from the rumblings here is Willie Lampkin, a 5'10" left guard, is potentially going to get drafted in this year's NFL draft.
I remember that's what Willie Colon said about you, Ramon, just not the 5'10" part.
Wow, the big butt part.
Hey, at least Willie Lampkin ran a 5'2".
Oh,
he did. You know what?
Wow.
Willie Lampkin better worry about making it into the league first.
You're right. You're right.
I got 11 behind me, Bert.
Ramon, I saw some of the clips. How much did you enjoy the Walter Nolan show yesterday? Or did you get PTSD as an interior lineman that would have to block him if y'all were the same age?
Well, we talked about it. He did exactly what you thought he was going to do.
He's so good.
He's so good.
Yeah.
He did exactly what you needed him to, man. He got low. He was disruptive in the run game. He was good in the passing game. Again, this class to me may not be your elite blue chipper. You know what I'm saying? I think Walter's probably one of those types of guys.
Right.
But this group is going to give you depth, starters, potential Pro Bowlers out of them. And, I mean, right now on day one, let me temper myself because I get excited about real football.
You do.
Scouting,
It's okay.
and watching tape. But this is a solid class. You want Walter Nolan on your team, but it's also, here's the other side. I got to give you the other side because we all know that too. He's the guy that also has to be able to crank that motor every single day. That is also one of Walter Nolan's issues that we've heard since high school. He can give you 4 sacks in a game, but then the next week he know he's got ahead of the curve, and you might get 1 tackle and that's it, and that's because of effort. So that's just one of those things that he's going to have to chase, and I know that's probably one of the things that he's been asked day in and day out in these meetings. I will also say too, Will, our ball, Omar Normalat, he did look good too. I think he left with a little bit of an injury, but I was told by somebody that he could, don't be surprised if he get around the right veterans and turn himself into a Pro Bowl vet, like a Pro Bowl type of guy, because he can play the run. I mean, he's a B version of what Walter Nolan is. It's a matter of him staying on the football field. And then another tackle too, Kelly, you mentioned that too. I forgot to bring him up, but Emory Jones, tackle LSU, he didn't look bad. He was solid yesterday. They kept him at right tackle for the most part, and he held his own. So day 2 is always going to be the thing. What I do know is this. As much as we're bragging on this offensive line, expect to hear a whole lot of hell about what the D-line does today because those coaches will not let that slide.
There's a get back always the next day, no doubt about it. He is Ramon Foster. He is with Titans Radio down at the Reese's Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. All right, get back to work. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Okay, one more, just real quick, speaking of offensive linemen.
Yeah, go.
The North Dakota State player.
We had someone in the chat want you to bring him up.
Oh, that guy's crazy. Honestly, if Emmett's the one saying it, then that means I want him. That means go for the North Dakota State guy.
Gray Zabel. Okay, I know it's like
Dog.
Dog.
D-A-W-G.
Yep.
He stayed at right guard, and I know everybody wants Trey Smith. What I'm telling everybody is this. From what we've heard from this front office, they are going to be spend efficient. There's a guy that comes from the same school as Dylan Radins that, in my opinion, looks better than what Dylan Radins did at the Senior Bowl. And Jim Nagy just confirmed that also with us on Titans Radio. It's like, no, he's the real deal. It's like sometimes you hate to like decal watch or helmet watch, but you do have to pay attention to those offensive linemen coming out of North Dakota State. And say what you want to about Dylan Radins. He wasn't perfect, but he got you 4 years out of a draft pick.
Yep.
And now it's time to move on. So, Gray Zabel, he's earned some money this week too. And he's, from what I saw, is the only player that did not move out of position. So he's a right guard. So the team that drafts him is going to play him at right guard also. And that means that he doesn't have to relearn anything. He was good in the run, good in the pass. And I'll put it this way, just a guy to keep your eye on, even if he's from a small school. Sure. They got a reputation over there in North Dakota State.
I like it. Ramon Foster from Mobile, Alabama, at Ramon Foster on Twitter, of course.
Whoa. Quick to hang up that.
Titans Radio said, we need him back now.
And hang up. Funny.
All right, there's Ramon from Mobile at the Senior Bowl. NFL headlines when we come back, 615-737-1045. There is a part of the NFL that's totally broken. We'll talk about that coming up next. Plus, some buzz around where Trey Smith is going to go in free agency. Speaking of the right guard Ramon just mentioned, the VFL, we'll talk all about all of that coming up next.
It's Ramon Foster for Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, y'all. They have been around here and in business since 1990. They're also family owned and operated, man. Jimmy Hiller, the CEO, well, he's been named recently amongst one of the most admired CEOs in all of the land, all right? It's because how he treats his team and his clients. Hiller takes care of the customers on every single job every time. They stand by their work, so much so that they have a slogan, and it goes like this, man. Happy you'll be or the service is free. If a customer isn't pleased with the work performed, they will make it right, all right? They have professional, experienced, and trustworthy technicians that come into your home and leave it cleaner and better than they found it, all right? And on top of that, you get true transparency pricing. What that means is this, is Hiller will line item whatever part of the job up front so homeowners can easily understand what they're paying for and why. There will be no hidden fees, no added costs, no surprises when you get your bill, all right? To book them or learn more about what Hiller has to offer you, simply visit happyhiller.com. It's Ramon Foster for Secure Lawn. I'm here to tell you guys, if you're like me and you hear that name, it's one of them, if you know, you just know who they are, okay? Lawns is what they do, and they are good at it. And right now is the time to be applying crabgrass and broadleaf weed control to your lawn, and I have the people that you need to call. Call Secure Lawn. Why? Because there's no better one to call. If you're like me, I like for my grass to be great, look awesome, luscious, okay, thick, green, at the right level, not browning when I don't need it to. I'm telling you, the place to call is Secure Lawn because they have been building up a solid reputation in Middle Tennessee homeowners for over 20 years, offering neighborly advice and legendary service also. Again, family owned and operated, best place to call. Get all your treatments. If you need somebody to cut your grass, no, use somebody else. I got somebody else for that, okay? Get everything you need right now to cut those weeds out. You can get a head start on your yard right now by calling 615-893-8455. Again, 615-893-8455, or go to securelawn.com.
RKW Live at 104.5 The Zone in studio, kicking off your Wednesday morning, 615-737-1045. The Pro Bowl's totally broken. Honestly, at this point, it's easier not to get angry when bad players get picked to it. It's easier just to not watch it and not care. So yesterday, we always get the replacements for guys who are out. Obviously, people playing in the Super Bowl. Sometimes you get guys that just came off championship game appearances. They'll say, nah, I'm good. Russell Wilson and Drake May are Pro Bowlers in the AFC.
Yeah.
Broken beyond repair.
It.
Broken beyond repair. I'm not mad about it. I just don't care anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to care.
I
honestly kind of forget about it until I'm flipping through the channels, maybe if I'm, gearing up for bed or something and I see it pop on. And then I'll sometimes just watch it for a second.
Yeah.
But it's mostly just for the interaction, Will. It's mostly just to hear the guys talk and have fun with the other guy. It's not about what they're doing.
Yeah, it's totally broken. So Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are out. They're not even in the Super Bowl. So that's why you get Russell Wilson and Drake May. I mean, wait 10 more minutes. Will Levis might be headed to the Pro Bowl.
Oh, God.
Who's to say?
They just need to cancel it then.
I mean, honestly, at this point, just have a Madden tournament and call it a day. We've already dumbed it down so much, and it's flag football, and then it becomes the skills challenge stuff, which I like. I have no issue with that. It just, start inviting Russell Wilson to the Pro Bowl for going 6-5 as a starter.
There's no really stipulations anymore.
What are we doing? Ridiculous. ESPN.com gives free agent buzz. They have their top 50 players available in free agency, and T. Higgins is their number one player.
Mm-hmm.
Trey Smith is number two. There continues to be buzz around one team and Trey Smith. I, unfortunately, am here to report that team is not the Tennessee Titans. It is the Chicago Bears. As Jeremy Fowler writes at ESPN.com, some inside the league are watching Chicago here. General Manager Ryan Poles, who needs to drastically improve his interior offensive line for new coach Ben Johnson, was in Kansas City when the Chiefs drafted Smith. Several teams have him as the top overall free agent. Kayla, when Mike Borgonzi says they need to be more selective in free agency, do you think that applies to Trey Smith, or is he the type of guy they would be selective in picking?
I honestly feel like he might be the guy that they're selective in picking just because of Mike Borgonzi's relationship with him and being somebody who's tied to him with the Kansas City Chiefs, who was also not the key guy to drafting him, but was in on those conversations when everybody was passing him over because of the heart situation and said, hey, we got to go get this guy. He's already fallen this far. Let's go get him. And now you know how it's turned out. So he trusts him. He understands who he is, not only as a player, but as a, guy that they respect on the team. So I know the money has to be a part of it, and you have to know that your money's going to be well spent, but trust comes into that too. And why, if you really know a player and know what he's capable of, not go and try to get a guy like that than to blindly pick a guy that you're not as familiar with, or even draft a guy that you don't know if they're going to live up to what they need to be.
Interesting, some of the quarterback notes on this list at ESPN.com and free agency buzz. On quarterback Russell Wilson, Jeremy Fowler writes, is a reunion with Pete Carroll, now Vegas head coach, really viable? 2 ex-Carroll assistants believe they can coexist, with one taking it as far as predicting that Wilson will go there, adding that the two rekindled their relationship a little over a year ago after a rocky ending with Seattle. Quote, I think both would be open to it, especially with this quarterback class the way it is. Jeremy Fowler writes, the Raiders' plans are uncertain, but this at least seems to be like a possibility. So that would take him off the board, and it would probably take Justin Fields off the board, because it would mean he would likely go back to Pittsburgh.
Exactly. And that's you need as many options for the Titans as possible, because you want them to be able to choose from whoever. And I know, that's not going to be the case. There's certain guys that are going to go certain places. By the way, speaking of that, we spoke of Daniel Jones earlier, right? Well, he is currently on the Minnesota Vikings roster.
Yep.
And you wonder, too, if Sam Darnold does depart and go somewhere else where they're going to pay him, do they just say, hey, we're going to keep Daniel Jones and we could just continue to develop I'm just spacing my name,
J.J.
right?
McCarthy.
J.J. McCarthy, since he's not going to probably be back right away, because we believe we can start to mold this guy, too, in Daniel Jones.
Yep.
That's a possibility.
He fits Kevin O'Connell.
Right. So then he's off the board. So you're really getting down to the nitty-gritty then possibly for a bridge quarterback if you're looking for the Titans.
Eric is in Virginia. Up next, 615-737-1045. What's up, Eric?
What's up, guys? I just got a hypothetical question here for you.
Sure.
Let's just say the Titans do trade back, don't draft a quarterback. And let's say Cam Ward and goes to the AFC and Shapiro goes to the NFC. And let's say at the end of the season they have both lifted their fan bases and their franchises out of despair and make the playoffs and have Jaden Daniels type seasons. While the Titans win one more game and are, let's say, 5th or 6th and can't draft a quarterback because they're too far back. Does that immediately put Brinker on the hot seat? That's my question. I'll hang up and listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
It is a good question.
Yep.
I think the answer, though, is no. Because I think that you can argue Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders have success as, Jets players, Giants players. I mean, if they get picked to the top 10, maybe there's a team that just goes from worst to first. But just because they would have success elsewhere does not mean they would be able to do that here. It's impossible for me to say somebody would be on the hot seat without knowing, how good were they? How good of the wide receivers did they have? How good was their line play? How good was their defense? So if you're just giving me a Jaden Daniels level proposition, I mean, Jaden Daniels also had a college quarterback who built an offense around his strengths. I don't think it's as simple as if those two guys work and it's not here, then these guys are in trouble.
Yeah, and I would think the only exception to that is that this is just how dire in need, though, they are of this franchise getting boosted before they go into the new stadium. And we have seen before that Amy Adams-Strunk, has been emotional with certain situations. If you don't get that quarterback and they do go have success somewhere else and you passed over them, there's always a chance that doesn't go over well in the front office, especially if you don't elevate your team that year.
The good thing about that is Jaden Daniels seasons happen once every 50 years.
Yeah.
What he did was not normal.
There is a lot of luck involved.
Don't count on that happening again. Simple as that. Coming up next, Tennessee, tough loss last night in Thompson Bowling Arena. We'll reset the headlines for you, react to Tennessee, Kentucky, what it means for the Vols. How concerned are we after a loss and on a second straight performance with a big issue that is consistent? That's next.
8:01. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Day one of the Senior Bowl in the books. Titans Radio, Zach Lyons, Ramon Foster, football and other F words. The whole gang down in Mobile doing a great job. Make sure you follow them for all the drills, standouts, winners and losers, everything in between. Ramon joined the show at 7:20. You can catch that wherever you get your podcasts at. Rhett Bryan joining the show in the 9 o'clock hour. Saints coaching search starts to whittle down, but not by their choice. Both Mike McCarthy and Cliff Kingsbury would rather enjoy their offseason, or in Kingsbury's case, return to the team he took from 4 wins to an NFC Championship appearance. The Saints still have 3 candidates remaining: Dolphins defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver, Giants offensive coordinator Mike Kafka, and Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, who is thought to be the favorite. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second half of the show and hour number 3, getting started on a Wednesday morning edition of RKW. 615-737-1045, the number. Talking more Titans coming up in 20 minutes as Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan had some very interesting things to say yesterday about the quarterback position. We'll play that audio coming up here very shortly. But first, we go to Knoxville, where Kentucky gives Tennessee its first home loss of the season, 78-73 over the Tennessee Volunteers. Kayla, what was your biggest concern out of this one from the Tennessee perspective?
Yeah, I would just say we knew coming into this game, Will, that this was a difference of styles of play in terms of what they brought to the table. Wildcats, obviously, offensively, high-scoring team. You know the Vols focus on the defense, and when it came down to it, I think in the end, especially, the Wildcats kind of pushed the Vols into playing their type of game. I mean, you saw the amount of threes they took, a lot of those, most of them not hitting when you needed at least to kind of drive and get some 2-point shots there to continue to make this a game. And I think just the offensive side of it, Will, like when they're put into a position like that where they're forced to play that type of game, like it didn't work.
It didn't. And honestly, this is what Kentucky got in Mark Pope. They got a coach that when his team is shooting well, they're going to beat teams they're not supposed to every now and then. And this was the prime example of it. Down Lamont Butler, down 2 starters, a Kentucky team that for a second straight season goes to Knoxville and wins because they just shot the lights out. Mm-hmm. I mean, 12 of 24 from 3, 50% three-point shooting. They shoot 50% in the game, and that's all without making a field goal in the last 5 minutes and 20 seconds of this game.
Yep.
Tennessee led by 3 in the first half. Kentucky outscores Tennessee 48-40 in the second half. So for Tennessee now, they have got to find another way to score. And to me, Kentucky shooting the way that they did is what it is. Tennessee took 22 more shots in this game than Kentucky did. Igor Milicic is about the only one who had a good shooting performance. 6 of 10 from the floor, 4 of 8 from 3, added 9 rebounds to go along with it. The lone bright spot for Tennessee in a game where their backcourt was just not good. And quite honestly, they are so thin at the forward position right now without J.P. Estrella that their backcourt has zero margin for error. None. 11 of 45 from 3 in this game. Zakai Ziegler was 1 for 11. Chaz Lanier was fine late, but ultimately 5 of 14, 3 of 10 from 3. I don't know why he's not in the game with about 2.5 minutes left as well, at a point where Tennessee needed points, was trailing, and he wasn't even on the floor. So he can't help you from the bench, which is part of it as well. But that backcourt just can't have an off night. And Tennessee's got 2 ways it can score right now. Their backcourt hitting a bunch of threes. Mm-hmm. Well, they're not good enough to make threes at that consistent of a rate and take 45 of them a game. Or live ball turnovers that result in fast break points and points off turnovers. Last night, Tennessee had 15 points off turnovers. They only turned it over 5 times. Kentucky turned it over 13 times, but they didn't do the three-point shooting part of it. They have no inside presence offensively right now. Their front court is giving them nothing offensively other than Felix Okpara lobs from Sakai Ziegler, and teams are starting to take that away. He only had 4 points last night.
Yeah, and Will, what I saw from really the jump in this game, we had 2 teams coming in that were playing, for different reasons in a way. Kentucky to break a losing streak, for Tennessee to start their homestand on a high note and really set the tone. And I don't know if I felt like the urgency coming out of the gates for the Vols in this one, because I definitely felt it on the Kentucky side. And it's almost like they set the tone and the Vols were just trying to play catch up the entire game.
Yeah, totally. Ryan Shepard of RockyTopInsider.com wrote about this and about how Tennessee's issues are really just as simple as making shots. According to ESPN stats and info, Tennessee on uncontested threes last night was 8 of 31. 8 of 31 on uncontested threes. Kentucky was 4 of 8 on uncontested threes. So defensively, Tennessee statistically was way better than Kentucky in this game. But that was part of the formula for Mark Pope. And he said after the game, we let the guys shoot who we wanted to shoot. Said, quote, we had some guys shooting that we kind of wanted shooting. And Rick Barnes said, of the 45 threes we took, 95% of them were wide open, but that was by design. That's what Kentucky was looking for. And it's interesting. So Kentucky contested 31% of Tennessee's threes, and Tennessee contested 67% of Kentucky's threes. Didn't matter. So that's the weird part of this, is that Tennessee in the transfer portal added 3 transfers who shot 37% or better from three-point range last season. They added 2 guys who shot 40% or more from 3. For the life of me, I can't understand why they can't hit a 3. Tennessee is missing shots that it was making consistently against Baylor, against Miami, against Syracuse, against teams who defended them similarly to the way Kentucky did. I don't know if it's just the grind physically of an SEC schedule. That's a cliche, but I think it's relevant, that they're just out of gas because they only have 9 scholarship players. I don't know what it is, but whatever is the root of it is secondary to the fact that Tennessee's got a wide open shot problem. They are missing wide open shots that they were making, and they've got to find a way to get more layups and find ways to score closer to the basket.
Yeah, I'm interested, though, Will, and you said just by, some of the things that have happened with the transfer portal, in just some injuries happening, is it wearing on some of these guys? Is it becoming a situation, too, when the pressure is on, like, we have to do these types of things, we've got to take this shot from 3, that it becomes a mental thing? Because in basketball, in any sport, we know that's a part of it, but especially during a season like this, where you got a grueling schedule, every single game, I feel like in the SEC, is a big, huge game. And we just noted that. Why, right? Because Tennessee's back at home. They're expected to defend their home turf when they just lost to Auburn on the road. So I think it's a thing, too, where they got to regroup themselves fairly quickly and get out of their own heads, because I think that is a part of it, Will, especially when you're talking about these 3-point shots.
We got 2 more ranked teams coming up. Florida at 11 a.m. Central on Saturday provides a big challenge. Obviously, they beat Tennessee by 30 last time. Mm-hmm. They have a front court that is dominant, that is way bigger and more physical than Tennessee's, and way deeper. I mean, they've got 4 or 5 bodies. That Tennessee only has 2 scholarship big men on the entire team. So I'm really curious to see what Tennessee does, because there are some guys you need out there for their defense, like Felix Okpara and Jemai Meshack, who are not giving you enough offensively to get you out of ruts when Chaz Lanier, Zakai Ziegler, and Jordan Gainey aren't making shots. So it's challenging. I don't know if they go smaller and let Igor Milicic play more of the 5. I don't know if it's just relying on Cade Phillips and Felix Okpara and asking them to be more back-to-the-basket scorers. I don't know what the answer is. What I do know is that Tennessee has time to fix it. And this is where I have trouble with Tennessee fans, because a lot of Tennessee fans hate Rick Barnes for the inability to win in March. Okay, well, a lot of that is out the window because you made the Elite 8 last year, first of all. But the complaint about Rick Barnes is, like, man, you always just win, too many games, January, February, and it's never that way when it matters. Well, here's the good news. It doesn't matter yet, but many of you are as mad like you just lost a tournament game. This was not an NCAA tournament game. I'm speaking only to you, Tennessee fans. I'm one of you. I'm speaking directly to you. There's still plenty of time. You can't get SEC tournament loss, NCAA tournament loss level angry at a game in January, as easy as it is when you lose at home to a rival. Last year, Kentucky beat you on your home floor. They went out to Jack Golke in Oakland in the first round. You made the Elite Eight. There's time to fix it, but there is a lot to fix for Tennessee, I feel like, is the headline out of it.
And I do understand the frustration, though, because it does seem like the offensive production just has been declining a bit. And so if you're going to fix it, Will, you need to fix it now while you're at home. And it didn't happen yesterday. So it needs to start to happen in this next game. Or then I do start to worry a bit about how fixable it is.
Coming into this game, Tennessee had the worst 2-point scoring offense of the SEC, and Kentucky had the worst 2-point scoring defense in the SEC. Didn't matter.
No.
Tennessee could not exploit Kentucky's biggest weakness by just going to the basket. Because they also don't have enough guys who go to the basket. So credit to Mark Pope and his staff for a good game plan. It worked out. It was a good matchup for them on the night, even without two starters. And he deserves a ton of credit. They're going to win some games they're not supposed to. I think also Kentucky will start losing some games they're not supposed to. And we'll see if Tennessee can get back when they go to Rupp in a couple weeks. Coming up, Mike Bergonzi and Brian Callahan spoke to the media yesterday in Mobile. What did we learn about what they want at the quarterback position? We'll tell you coming up next.
Hey, are you currently living in Nashville and feel overwhelmed with the amount of options there are when it comes to buying and selling your home? Well, I had the solution for you. I have a local real estate agent that you can trust. That is why you should check out my friend Bernie Gallerani, because he brings just that trust and years of experience and a proven track record to go along with those as well. He's not going to let you down. In fact, Bernie is going to guarantee to sell your home in 30 days or less, or he's going to buy it from you. Buying your home can be overwhelming. I get it. But Bernie Gallerani Real Estate, they will make it an easy process. Thomas recently shared his excitement about watching his son purchase his first home with the help of this outstanding team. From very first contact, the team impressed with their knowledge, professionalism, and dedication to making the process smooth and stress-free. And the company's organization and exceptional communication made sure he always felt informed and confident throughout the whole process. Look, Bernie is the only real estate agent in Nashville recommended by Barbara Corcoran of Shark Tank. He's the only agent I would trust to sell my home. So give him a call on his cell phone, 615-428-2644. That's 615-428-2644. Or you can just go to BernieGallerani.com.
RKW continues on this Wednesday morning with open phone lines at 615-737-1045. On Twitter at Ramon Kayla Will, where you can interact with the show, and a couple of polls for you this morning, including a question an hour ago. We asked, as of today, what would you rather do? Trade back or draft Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward? 79% of you want to trade back. I'm
A lot
surprised
more
it's
than
that
I
many.
thought.
Yeah. I expected it to be the majority, but I did not expect it to be by that wide of a margin. So let's say they do take a quarterback. Looking for either Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward to be that guy. Mike Bergonzi and Bryan Callahan talked to the media yesterday in Mobile. And at the Senior Bowl, Mike Bergonzi talked about some guys having it in this clip from A to Z Sports.
Some guys have it. You know, they're just cool, calm under pressure. That's how Pat was, you know, in Kansas City. So I've had a good view of that, you know, for a while. And so is Bryan with Joe. But those are the things you look for. It's exactly right. It's you know, handling those critical moments, especially for that position.
So that's Bergonzi on the critical moments. We've heard Bryan Callahan talk to A to Z Sports at Easton Freeze about wanting a quarterback with a good nervous system. Well, A to Z Sports asked Mike Bergonzi about that as well, getting his take on it. And the Titans GM on finding a QB with a good nervous system answered with this.
A lot of, you can see some of the poise on film, right? Critical situations, third downs, you know, red zone plays. Those are things you're looking for when the game's on the line. What do they do in critical moments of the game? And then a lot of it is researching with the scouts and talking to people inside the building and how they deal with adverse situations throughout the week, throughout the game. So that's an important part of the process. You know, making plays in critical times of the game, especially for that position, is very important.
Making plays in critical parts of the game. Kayla, do you hear a description that applies to these two prospects?
Yeah, I do. I mean, and I'll explain the pros and cons of this, but the first thing he said in that first clip was you either have it or you don't. And whether or not you believe Cam Ward has it from the get-go in terms of being a starter or he sits for a little bit and eventually gets to be a starter, I do think he has it. And the reason why I say this is because nothing beats experience. And while it is different at the NFL level, and I can say this about Shedeur too, both of these quarterbacks have a ton of experience, not only just with one team and one coordinator and one atmosphere, but both with multiple, you know, types of atmospheres and coaches and systems. So they've all, for the most part, both of those guys navigated it really well. But with Cam Ward in particular, just that whole thing about Quandre Diggs saying to me like he was just born this way, like that sticks with me with that conversation I had with him in the locker room that day and has never left my brain. Like he was just born to do this. He's different. And it makes me feel like the way that I've seen him navigate from Incarnate Ward to Washington State to Miami, when the moment is big, he doesn't get rattled. Now, here's the thing I'll say about Cam Ward, though, that's rolling the dice, is you've seen him in moments, though, make some stupid decisions. We know that he can turn over the ball, and those are the types of things that I know Bryan Callahan said specifically. They don't want a quarterback who's going to be turning over the ball. So is that fixable is the biggest thing with Cam Ward that's still a question to me. Does he have it? I do think he does. But some of that's got to be coached out of him when it comes to those lazy turnovers. So
with experience and with going different places being important, like what separates them from Dillon Gabriel then?
I just think Dillon Gabriel, I've seen in the Senior Bowl, day one, I don't know if he has the big arm, right? I don't know if he has the size. And the experience part, yes, he does have, but all the other intangibles that come with it, I don't know if he has it. I don't know if he's like compared to Cam Ward, somebody who's as athletic. So I look at Dillon Gabriel, just everything that I just listed compared to Cam Ward, take Cam Ward over that any day.
Well, because I think what you're describing, though, describes a lot of quarterbacks in this class. Like Jalen Milroe played a lot of football. Jackson Dart played a ton of football for 3 years at Ole Miss. Dillon Gabriel is the all-time leader in pick your stat in college football.
Cam Ward's done it at 3 different places and been successful.
Sure, so is Dillon Gabriel. He's done it at 3 different places and been successful at UCF, at Oklahoma, and at Oregon.
But I don't think Dillon, when it comes down to the size, like I just mentioned, and all the strong arm and all that stuff, I don't think he's as good of as a prospect as Cam Ward is, and that's just based on just the intangible, like the body, the arm. I don't even think Dillon Gabriel's in the conversation just because he played a lot of football.
But if experience is the first thing you're going to, then
No, I'm saying that's a big part of it when it goes along with all the other thing that Cam has. A strong arm. He's super athletic. Like, those are the things added to it. And then you add the experience, and he's been successful in 3 different places. And I think you need to look at that as well.
It's interesting because I just don't think we are going to be able to tell a lot of this without being in the meetings. And where I think this conversation gets interesting is when you hear Mike Borgonzi describe when he first met Patrick Mahomes. How good of a character evaluator is Mike Borgonzi?
Mm-hmm.
How good of a can I look you in the eye and tell you're made of the right stuff evaluator is Mike Borgonzi? The success of the Titans kind of relies on that at the current moment. There is a lot of information these guys get, and we'll be privy to some of it. A lot of information that they're going to get through this process, we will never know the specifics of. And that is where this organization is going to have to go with their gut. I don't think it's as simple as, you've got one quarterback that threw a lot of picks this season and Cam Ward throws a lot of picks. And we get comments on YouTube that just says, well, we have Cam Ward at home. It's Will Levis. Well, they have some similar weaknesses, but they're not the same prospect.
I think they're drawing to the turnover aspect in that. Cam Ward is way more talented and, has played way more ball than Will Levis.
If you want to look at the differences, he played a lot more football than Will Levis. That's your best argument to say they're not the same. Like Cam Ward started a lot more football games than Will Levis did in his career. They're different kinds of players, even though they both have decision-making issues. What I think the Titans are going to have to do is make a quick evaluation, and that's what concerns me. Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan are coming into this without the legwork of watching quarterbacks and getting to know quarterbacks over the last year.
Mm-hmm.
Is it worth the risk of just in the draft process becoming an expert and staking the future of your franchise on 2 guys that you've only really had a couple months to get to know? Is that a concern for you?
Yeah, it always is. And I think the thing with this staff is there are so many other things they're trying to fix. And when you have the number 1 overall pick and the pressure to maybe pick a quarterback because, you don't have that position filled either, there can be a little bit of pressure put on them we got to really evaluate these guys quickly. But then again, that's what they're brought here to do. And Mike Borgonzi got the job because he had tons of years of experience in one place, in a place where they had success of doing that and evaluating talent at the right level. I think it's hard to say, though, right now, because they've only met with one of those quarterbacks, and that's Shedeur Sanders. We haven't heard a lick about Cam Ward. They haven't met with Cam Ward yet. So once they meet with him or, see him at the combine the combine, I'll start to chime in more about this, but it's hard to do that when they haven't even talked with the young man.
John on Twitter tweets at us with the New York Giants schedule and says, we'll spam this until I can't no more. Get to the number 3 pick. And it's a reminder that the Giants next season, their non-divisional opponents on the road are Broncos, Lions, Bears, Saints, Raiders, and Patriots. And at home, they play the Packers, Vikings, Niners, Chiefs, and Chargers. So 79% of you would rather trade back than draft Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. If that's going to happen, we better start hearing buzz about those 2 guys, and we better hear it quickly. And it is too early in the process for me to say, I think, without a shadow of a doubt, that they're going to be able to trade back and do that. The challenge for Mike Borgonzi and his staff, and we're going to beat this drum all the way probably until April, is can you find the X factors that the tape doesn't show? I do think Mike Borgonzi gave us some practical insight in red zone situations, third down situations. How do you play in big games and how much that's going to matter to this organization? But there's just going to have to be the ability to look a guy in the eye and know if he's made of the right stuff. And I remember this from my own athletic experience because I was on the other side of this conversation. I remember my first ever competition in college as an athlete at Tennessee. And on the starting line of a race, our coach looked at us and said, I can always look people in the eye and tell whether they're ready to go that day.
Yeah.
Because I remember thinking, yeah, I'm not. I'm honestly. I admitted it myself. I was like, I'm coming off injury. I'm not healthy. Didn't have a good summer. I'm not ready to go. There are some coaches that have that ability.
Yeah.
Who can look you in the eye. There are GMs that have the ability to know, do you have it? And unless you're in those meetings, I don't think there's any way to know.
No.
If either of these guys have it.
And I do think, Will, we've seen it time and time again. I think having it sometimes and going to the right place and having it right away, that also happens. Some of these guys, they don't have it right away because they're just not going into a good situation. You see the trade, even up in Chicago, we're still trying to figure out, is Caleb Williams really that generational talent everybody's talked about? Right now, not so much, but we still think that that could change once they have changed the staff and he gets a little more time.
But he threw for 3,500 yards this year.
Sure, but we're not talking about him as having it.
Right, just because Jaden Daniels existed.
Exactly.
Like how differently are we evaluating Caleb Williams if Jaden Daniels isn't also in this past class?
Yep.
615-737-1045. You want to give your take on Shedeur Sanders or on Cam Ward. I thought this was interesting audio from Bryan Callahan. We played it earlier. Brayton Gall put this out courtesy of 440 Sports about this process being a lot different to when he was in Cincinnati.
It's hard to articulate, to be honest. You get to a certain point where you feel very comfortable with all the work you've done, and that's really for every draft pick. But it's hard to like pinpoint the moment. It's just sort of accumulation of work and sort of unturning every stone you can unturn, and you hope to find the information you need. Sometimes you don't always, and there's a little bit of faith in it too, that you're doing the right thing at the right time. But it's mostly just the totality of the work. I mean, it takes months between now and the actual time to pick, unless there's a scenario again like in Cincinnati, we knew we were going to take Joe Burrow pretty early. That's a little bit different story. That's not what this draft is right now for us. And there's a lot of possibilities where we sit, a lot of good players, and we're going to have to do a work on all of them. Really, every scenario is potentially on the table, and when we get to that point, we'll know it, but it does take a lot of work to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I hear in that. I hear a head coach who wants to trade back.
Oh, yeah. Especially if he brings up Joe Burrow.
Right. I think specifically saying there's not a Joe Burrow in this draft class is like a big marquee sign, like when you get bottle service of like, please trade with me.
Yes.
Or we will take Abdul Carter.
Exactly. And it is a unique situation, too. Going back to that draft that they were picking number one at, Will, he was the clear overall favorite quarterback. And he had other guys, though, that were kind of battling, too, to be that dude. I mean, you had Tua Tagovailoa in that draft. You had Justin Herbert in that draft they all went top 10. But he was that much of a clear favorite, where as I think he looks at these two guys in particular, Bryan Callahan, that is, and he knows he's going to have to develop one of these guys a little more so than he would a guy like Burrow. And I think in that fact, it's not fair to them, but it is what it is. Like, I think he's looking at long-term, okay, let's just get the pieces around our quarterback. Let's wait till next year to really get a guy that I feel comfortable in could be the dude.
Well, because if there was a Joe Burrow in this class, we wouldn't be saying things like they need to sit.
Uh-huh. And,
like
and
the
that's fair to say.
expectation day one was for Joe Burrow to be the starting quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals.
For sure.
The fact that we don't have a quarterback that we feel comfortable enough to just trot out there is enough evidence to say, yeah, he's right.
And look, one of those guys, even if the Titans don't draft him, could surprise us, and they could be tasked to start somewhere and have success. I'm not saying they can't do that, but I would like to see them sit for a minute and then be able to play. I think that's where they're both at right now.
I do think the Vegas odds part of the number 1 overall pick and draft conversation is always interesting because it is a very inexact science, and you have surprises like C.J. Stroud and Houston and things like that happened a couple of years ago. But there has been movement in the Vegas odds where Cam Ward is still the odds-on favorite to be the Titans pick or just to be the pick at number 1 overall, because obviously you're not surmising that it only could be the Titans. It's just the fact that Cam Ward would go 1. There is a new player with the second best odds, though, for the number 1 overall pick. That is now Abdul Carter.
Okay.
Moving up to plus 180. And I think at this point, between him and Travis Hunter, would you rather have Carter or Hunter?
Ooh,
If you're not taking a quarterback, because it really feels like it's those 4 guys that are the options for the Titans at 1: Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter.
Maybe this is me covering this team for the last 8 years, going on 9, and just not having that exciting thrill pick. And so this is selfishly a little bit of that. I almost kind of want a Travis Hunter where I know people are still arguing what side of the ball he'll primarily play, but I almost think that that's a good problem to have. Just get him in here. That guy loves ball. He's a smart dude, and you can maybe play him in either on defense or offense, but just get him in the building. So maybe I'm talking myself into more of Travis Hunter right now.
You don't think Abdul Carter would be an exciting pick?
I think he'd be exciting, but not as much as a guy that you could possibly put on the offensive side of the ball.
See, give me Abdul Carter all day.
And I'm not saying that's a bad decision. I would not be mad at it.
Between those two, I think it's the second most important position in the NFL behind quarterback.
And they've been needing that spot.
And they don't.
So I get it.
They need maybe 3 edge rushers in the entire offseason, especially if either or Arden Key or Harold Landry is out. I mean, I see a glaring need there over the next 5 seasons. And Abdul Carter, a guy that moved from inside linebacker to outside linebacker who had as much success as he did this past season. I think he is the biggest can't-miss talent in this draft.
And I do still feel like those words of Mike Bergonzi when he came on to our show at the day after he was introduced, he said the fronts are most important. And I do feel like if that is something that is coming out of his mouth and you've got a guy like Abdul Carter available, you build from the front back.
That is something Bergonzi emphasized again yesterday, talking with reporters who are in Mobile for the Senior Bowl. Was asked about the team's biggest needs heading into the draft and free agency. And he said, we have some holes to fill on the offensive line. That will be number 1. He continued, and then depth level across the whole team right now. Creating competition is going to be the biggest thing, whether it's through free agency, through the draft. There might be a guy that we sign off the street, a workout guy, but we want to build the fronts first. Offensive and defensive line, and then build depth along the perimeter. That does not sound like a GM that's ready to draft a quarterback to me.
No. And I think he knows you're not going to probably take a tackle, first over. You're not going to take a tackle first overall.
Not with the number 1 overall pick.
No, but if they trade down, there is a possibility. I still don't think they do that. But even with saying that, Will, it's even a red light to me that goes off of maybe this team isn't ready to take that quarterback because the offensive line is clearly not even there.
Mike Bergonzi talking about Shedeur Sanders on Tuesday, yesterday afternoon, says, enjoyed talking to him. Smart, engaging, and confident kid. We had a great conversation with him. It wasn't that long, but it was the first opportunity that we had to really sit down and talk to him, and this is a process, so we look forward to talking to him again. Wrapping a bow on all of this. Yeah. The Titans have a very short amount of time to look these 2 quarterbacks in the eye and realize whether or not they have it. And I think it's a really big risk for a new general manager to come in and stake maybe their career as a GM on a guy they just started scouting. It is all up to them to figure out whether or not they're willing to do that and willing to say, can we sit down with these quarterbacks in January and know everything we need to know about them in April? Mike Bergonzi did not come from an organization that needed a quarterback and was scouting a quarterback, and he's said it. Chad Brinker's been scouting them, so we'll see how much that matters. But I think that is a very, very big risk to, in that short amount of time, put everything on a QB. 615-737-1045, open for your reaction to the conversation about Shedeur Sanders. about Cam Ward. Where are you at in terms of drafting them or trading back? And if you trade back, how far back are you willing to go? We'll take your phone calls, get your reaction on that coming up next.
If you're often feeling tired, lacking motivation, drive, or gaining weight or noticing a loss of muscle mass, man, these could all be signs of low testosterone. Don't wait. Find out, all right? At Low T Center, they make it easy to get your levels checked. And it's just a simple test. And with their on-site lab, you get your results back right there on site. Low T Center is not a typical doctor's office either. The physicians specialize in treating low T with testosterone replacement therapy or TRT for each patient. The experts at Low T Center have over a decade of experience helping patients, and super important here, the personal treatment plans are optimized for each patient. These aren't just basic standard treatments. No, for the current patients also, Low T Center offers you a $150 referral credit for each new patient that you offer. And Low T Center, you can also get your health evaluated also for treatment with prescription GLP-1 weight loss medication. So get back to your best. Go to lowtcenter.com to book your appointments today. That's lowtcenter.com. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
RKW 104.5 The Zone, 615-737-1045 the number. Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, are you willing to mortgage the future of the Titans on either of those two guys? Your thoughts at the F and Big Chat as well. Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Did you hear about this CJ Stroud and Bobby Slowick feud yesterday?
Yeah, it didn't happen recently.
No, but this is interesting. It kind of slid under the radar over the weekend, the Friday news dump, that Bobby Slowick got fired by the Texans.
Yes.
Guy that was doing head coaching interviews just out there in the ether, available to be an OC. So Lance Zierlein was on ESPN 97.5. I believe this is in Houston, and talked about a feud between Bobby Slowick and CJ Stroud going all the way back to the pre-draft process.
I'll tell you the whole thing now that Slowick's gone. C.J. Stroud came to visit the Texans, and Bobby Slowick was telling them, okay, they were watching stuff on tape. Now, before I tell you this, when C.J. was at Ohio State, he really didn't talk to the OC at all. He didn't think he knew ball. This coming from somebody who knows C.J. intimately. He didn't think the offense coordinator was very smart. So he would only talk to Ryan Day. Ryan Day was the guy who had to communicate with C.J., which I didn't love that, honestly, before the draft process. And it played into some of my thoughts on CJ in terms of coachability. What I heard was that he didn't like his communication was Ryan Day and not the offense coordinator. Okay, well, that's a little strange, but whatever. He comes into Houston. Bobby Slowick is trying to tell him some stuff, and CJ just says, "Oh yeah, I know that we call this, whatever, XY switch, whatever it would be at Ohio State." And apparently, maybe it happened a couple times, and Bobby Slowick just kind of jumped him, said, "I don't give a what you call it, Ohio State. That's college. This is pro football." And Bobby kind of got in his face about it, And CJ's not one to back down at all. And CJ, and I don't know if Bobby was testing him or I don't know what the deal was, but CJ jumped up and got back in his face. And it was very contentious. It had to be kind of broken up. And so when CJ went to his next draft meeting, and I talked to the team where CJ went, because I asked this team, "Hey, did you hear anything about this with CJ Stroud?" And they said, "Oh, we asked CJ how his last visit went," which was Houston. He said, terrible. I don't think I'll be going there. And people who train, like CJ's whole crew, did not want him to go to Houston. And they didn't think he was going to Houston because it was he and Bobby got into it. And then CJ was drafted by Houston, which that's one of the reasons I was really surprised. Like I kind of wrote, after finding that out, I wrote CJ off from the Texans, and I thought, okay, this is Will Anderson for sure. And so when they traded for him, I was very surprised because I knew there was that lingering stuff there. But then in discussing all of it last year, I heard it was squashed. Like there was no issue. Bobby and him were good.
Oh, my God. I just feel like I listened to an episode of As the Texans Turn. What in the world?
This is the stuff that I live for.
Oh,
Lance Zierlein of
God.
NFL Media on that is Ray Stills, right? NFL Media, I think.
I believe so. I'll have to double check that.
Lance Zierlein on Houston radio. Quarterback won the feud. Can't get rid of CJ Stroud, but you can sure as heck get rid of Bobby Slowick.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised at that move. And so some of this definitely, there's probably truth to it. Now, whose side do you take? I don't know. I mean, I find it hard to believe maybe I was blinded by who CJ Stroud was in terms of the stubbornness, and if it's not my way, it's the highway. But it kind of does paint a picture now that Slowick's gone that it is kind of CJ Stroud's way or the highway. But I don't know what to believe.
I get a weird vibe from him, man. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just how much he is in the media and how much he does that podcast and talks with Micah Parsons, but I believe every word of that, to be honest with you.
Oof.
I 100% believe it. I just wonder how much of that played into the Titans believing that they could have landed C.J. Stroud. Oh, yeah, the Texans, he's out with them. I know they need a quarterback, but it's not like they're not going to take him. He had a terrible meeting with him, So I love this kind of stuff, and I'm glad we didn't have to wait 15 years to hear it. It came out 2 years rather than
Juicy.
after everyone was fired.
Now you wonder, what could solidify it, though, guys, is who they hire at OC. Like, is there any type of connection in the past with C.J. Stroud? that could very well come into play with
Brian
this.
Day is not going to go be a head coach somewhere else. He's going to go be the
No.
OC of the Houston Texans. No chance. Commenter on YouTube says, I bet Mike Vrabel would have been okay with CJ using Ohio State terminology.
Right?
Well, yeah, let's play that alternate history game. If the Titans did pull off a trade for CJ Stroud, is Mike Vrabel still the coach here? Is Rain Carthon still the GM? Probably.
That's wild to think.
They never would have had the Will Levis experience. Truly. And I believe you hear the rumblings, and we saw the reports before it happened. I think they were absolutely in on CJ Stroud. The Titans were.
No doubt about it.
They 100% wanted to trade up and make CJ Stroud a Tennessee Titan before they made the deal for Will Levis. That was plan A.
By the way, Chip Kelly was not there
Correct. He was at
when
UCLA.
he was at Ohio State.
And I don't think this precludes C.J. Stroud from being a good quarterback. Like having disagreements with your OC has never had. Like it didn't matter to Ben Roethlisberger when he had Todd Haley. Right. It didn't matter with Roethlisberger and McCarthy. So I mean, it doesn't hurt him, in my opinion. And now, if this continues to happen with guys, I think it could be an issue. The two names that have been thrown out there: Thad Lewis, who was the Buccaneers quarterback coach, who could potentially be retained by the Bucs to come back as the OC, or Nick Caley, who is the passing game coordinator with the Rams. So, if you're going to get somebody, you need to go get somebody with a big brain, someone that he will respect, and not someone that he thinks, I'm smarter than this guy. He doesn't know anything.
Right.
So
they also completed interviews, according to Aaron Wilson's KPRC, current quarterbacks coach Jared Johnson, and it looks like Syracuse offensive coordinator Jeff Nix.
There you go.
So
interesting. Did you guys see Brett Bielema take a crowbar to Jim Harbaugh yesterday?
Yes.
No, I didn't see this one.
My goodness. Oh, my goodness. So Jim Harbaugh was talking about cheating, something he does very well. And he said, you always want to be above reproach, especially when you're good, because you don't want people coming back and saying, oh, they're winning because they're cheating. We want to be above the approach and everything, play by the rules. Quote, if you cheat to win, then you've already lost. Jim Harbaugh says. This was years ago. This was an old, just video that just came up. Well, Brett Bielema retweeted it and said, really? Why did you leave? Was looking forward to playing, but understand why you ran to the NFL. See you in the future
awesome.
And can't wait. Hashtag FamILE, which is like the Illinois hashtag ILL.
I love it. Get him, Bielema.
Brett Bielema does not care.
I think it's great.
Bielema should also know about cheating, considering he cheated on his wife with a dancer.
With the stripper.
Go ahead and
I
belly
told
up
you
there,
guys
Bielema.
about that. Didn't he marry her?
He did marry her. They're still married.
Exactly.
All right.
You ain't up where you're supposed to end up with.
He's in love with the stripper.
I mean, sometimes you just got to dance with who got you there, you know?
And who got you to the buffet? 615-737-1045. He's like Pac-Man. He ate Shane Beamer, now he's going after Jim Harbaugh.
He's still hungry.
Pac-Man.
Coming up, Rhett Bryan from the Senior Bowl. He will talk NFL draft with us. Prospects they have already met with, and lots of insight from down in Mobile with Rhett B coming up next.
What's going on? 9 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Day one of the Senior Bowl in the books. Titans radio, Ramon Foster, Zach Lyons, and football and other F words down in Mobile doing an incredible job. Make sure you follow them for all the drills, standouts, winners, and losers, and everything in between. Ramon Foster joined the show at 7:20 with his day one observations. You can find that wherever you download your podcast at. Rhett Bryan coming up in the 9 o'clock hour with his day one observations. You are not going to want to miss that. Saints coaching search starting to whittle down, but not exactly by their choice. Both Mike McCarthy and Cliff Kingsbury would rather enjoy their offseason and, in Kingsbury's case, return to the team he took from a 4-win team to an NFC championship appearance. The Saints have 3 candidates remaining: Dolphins defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver, Giants offensive coordinator Mike Kafka, and Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, who is thought of as the favorite. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. Now to Rhett Bryan on 104.5 The Zone.
Hour 4 of RKW begins on this Wednesday morning, and we are looking for some players who are plug and play, okay? Coming up here in Hour 4, we have got lots more from Mobile at the Reese's Senior Bowl with Kayla Anderson. I am Will Bowling. Ramon is down there in Mobile. So is Rhett Bryan of Titans Radio, who joins us at 9 a.m. on Wednesdays. Rhett, I can't see you, but I know you are most likely holding up 4 fingers in the air right now for the fourth quarter of the show, as you always are. What's going on?
That is true. That is absolutely true. Yeah, we're about to pull into the parking lot here at the stadium, and it's day 2 of the Senior Bowl practices. Go into pads today, and some first impressions yesterday, and we'll see what happens here in day 2. And it's, one of those things where offensive line, defensive line always gets attention. Offensive line got the better of those guys yesterday, even with the impressive deep line prospects and edge rushers they have here. And then obviously quarterbacks are trying to find their footing. We'll see if they rebound from having kind of an off beginning day like they usually do. But yeah, it's exciting.
Well, Rhett, first and foremost, before we dive into some of these prospects and talk about the practices yesterday, what have you guys been up to with Titans Radio, the content? Tell us about who all you have been able to speak with and where people can consume the content that you guys are creating.
There are OTPs being released as we speak and forthcoming also with interviews from Jake Brenningstool, the tight end from Ravenwood, who is down here and had a pretty good first day at the Senior Bowl yesterday. And wide receiver Pat Bryant, we talked to this morning. Edge pass rusher Mike Green from Marshall, who led the nation in quarterback sacks last year with 17 sacks. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff. And then Amy Wells had a great interview with head coach Brian Callahan, general manager Mike Borgonzi. And so anyway, there's lots of stuff that is coming out from all of the activities here this week, but you can all catch it on TennesseeTitans.com or any of those other places you get the OTP and all those things.
Titans Radio's Rhett Bryan down at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. So, Rhett, yesterday, who did you focus on that you could tell us about in terms of maybe stock rising a bit after day one?
So, Coach Mack and Ramon watched the big guys, O-line, D-line, and I did watch some of that, but I wanted to see some of these skill position guys, even though knowing that the quarterbacks usually don't have a great first day because they're kind of trying to find their footing and find their bearings in this. So I focused on some skill position stuff with wide receivers and running backs. Running back Brashard Smith is a very interesting story. He's the running back from SMU, but previously was a wide receiver at the University of Miami. He's a Miami kid and played 4 years there and then finished up, but made the transition from wide receiver to running back, and you can certainly see that with the way he kind of moves out of the backfield. He had a very nice day of practice yesterday. And so he was one that kind of caught my eye. And Elijah Arroyo, the big tight end from the University of Miami, one of Cam Ward's favorite targets. He had a good showing yesterday. But, yeah, there's a ton of talent down here. So just a couple of those to begin with. And then some of those big guys, Alabama A&M's Carson Vinson is somebody that showed up. Willie Lampkins, who was a last-minute addition to the Senior Bowl, a very undersized offensive line, came in at 5'10", 270, and held his own against a lot of those D linemen yesterday. It was impressive to see.
Rhett, you had mentioned maybe the quarterbacks not having a good day in that day one, and maybe even historically when they go down there. Why do you think that is? And usually have you seen the trend upwards in terms of how they bounce back?
Yeah, part of it is they're just, trying to find their footing, with the guys that they're grouped with and the coaches and the game plan and the pre-festivity week meetings that they have in this. And then you've got examples like the quarterback from Canada that was a last-minute invite, because Will Howard, after they won the national championship, the quarterback from Ohio State, he bailed out of this, as a lot of the the college playoff guys did, because it ran so late close to this event. So they brought in Taylor Elgersma, who is from London, Ontario, Canada. He went to Wilfrid Laurier University, and he was the College Player of the Year there last year, the Heck Crichton Award winner, basically their Heisman Trophy winner. And this is a guy that, when he got out there yesterday, just wasn't connecting, wasn't figuring things out. But again, ball is different size, and just the receivers and the talent and the things that he'd been used to up there, totally different, and the speed of everything here. So I'm kind of looking to see what he does in day two, just to see if he's starting to get a little acclimation there. But some of the, Jackson Dart, I thought, had an off day yesterday. Again, first day in this deal. But some of the ones who actually made a few plays, Seth Hennigan, the quarterback from Memphis, had a couple of nice passes. And Tyler Shuck, the kid from Iowa State, also. So, it's just an acclimation period for this stuff. But they usually bounce back. We'll see what happens. I'm always interested to see the dynamic, too, and the difference of coaching styles from the American practice to the national practice in those two teams. And sometimes you'll see a little zippier practice than maybe the other team in the early session each day.
Rhett Bryan of Titans Radio with us from Mobile at the Reese's Senior Bowl. Rhett, when you look at right tackle prospects specifically, and then Anthony Belton at NC State, a guy at 6'5", 345 pounds. He mostly played left tackle yesterday. He also slid inside for some reps. You read about Gray Zabel and his ability at right guard, just the nastiness that he's showcased at the interior line position. Is this a theme, Rhett? And is it concern at all to you how many of these tackles might be better guards? Because it feels like, from what I'm reading and from what I'm hearing from down there, a lot of the big-time tackle prospects might be better suited to kick inside. Is that a true statement? Is that a concern for you about this class at all?
It's not necessarily a concern. It's just what it is.
Sure.
This is not a top-heavy tackle class like it was last year. And when you look at the size of some of these guys, certainly they're going to ask them to try different things on the inside, whether they play left or right tackle, either one. Josh Connerly, the tackle from Oregon, may be one of the handful of few left tackles that are really here. But you're right. Marcus Bowe from Purdue, they asked him to actually take snaps and prep for this as a center. And they're going to try him at guard. So you got some guys that bump inside and out. And then Jalen Rivers was a guy that stood out yesterday from Miami, who has played both guard and tackle, and actually switched up positions in games for the Hurricanes last season. So, the versatility they're looking for. But, yeah, you're going to see a lot of guys that they're going to bump inside that they end up being guards in this thing. Right tackle, obviously, is a need for the Titans. And I started telling you guys about Ozzie Trapillo from Boston College. And, I think this is a place where he can earn some stripes this week in front of everybody watching.
Rhett, it's interesting, too. You talk about a second day of practice in any context. This always seems to be the get-back day, right? Like a quarterback has a bad day, you hone it in, you fix some things with wide receivers. Similarly, with the big guys, this is often the day you start to see some scuffles, you start to see a little bit of aggression, right? Is that kind of something you're looking for today, and how real of a conversation is that about, these big guys specifically? All right, this dude ran through my face on these individual reps yesterday, and a little bit of aggression that comes out then the day after that.
No, that is exactly what we're looking forward to today in the bigs. Shamar Stewart, who was one of the top prospects in this thing for Texas A&M, got bettered in a couple of reps by Carson Vincent from Alabama A&M. So absolutely. And then you look at a mammoth guy like a Deion Walker from Kentucky, who is 6'7", 340. Maybe not the most agile person, but he had moments where he was back on his heels a little bit too. But yeah, you can certainly look for the D-line to try to get even today.
Right. Looking at and everybody has their opinions, right, on who was good in first day, who was not. But for the most part, people agree on a lot of these guys. When it comes to a local guy in terms of Tennessee's Omar Norman Lott, what have you heard about him after day one? Because from what we seen, at least on the NFL Network, a little bit of viewing of that, he held his own.
He did. And that's the thing that you want to see in this is a guy that is constantly showing up, and that's what Omar Norman Lott did yesterday. I felt like there may not have been like huge flashes of things, but you kept noticing him in just kind of, making his presence known and showing up in various paces through that practice. I'll be interested to see if he can stack a day like that, but that's the kind of player that he is one of those consistent pluggers in this thing. Hey, but yeah.
Rhett, did you get a chance to talk at all with C.J. Johnson? I know I just saw Jim Wyatt's tweet about that and how he's down there scouting. Do you know anything more about, kind of the role he's playing now? Excuse me, Chris Johnson.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm cloudy-headed today.
That's all good. I knew who you meant. And, CJ2K is down here as kind of a mentor with the running backs. And I still hadn't quite figured out exactly what his job assignment is. Amy Wells described it as kind of being camp counselor, and I think that's right.
I love that.
But he can teach them some things. I mean, clearly, being one of the 9 guys in the 2,000-yard club. But yeah, he's been down here and working with these dudes, and look forward to trying to talk to him today and see what's up. But CJ2K, you never know who you're going to see down here. That's kind of what this is, whether they're in a capacity of helping the talent that's here, or just, seeing people that are trying to get other people ready through this process. Like former Titans general manager John Robinson has been down here and trying to help some guys and, just looking at things. But, when Mason Taylor's down here from LSU and you see his dad, Jason Taylor, down there, the gold jacket, the Hall of Famer, it's kind of a who's who event.
Rhett, Bryan, a part of that Who's Who event down there for the Reese's Senior Bowl. When we come back, I'm curious what the best conversation Rhett and Titans Radio have had with a prospect is so far, because this is the time when we all got introduced to Tajay Spears, as Max says, Rhett's best friend, Tajay Spears, a couple of years ago. So we'll ask Rhett about that. Plus, there is a trend at the wide receiver position I think is interesting for the Titans at slot, and guys that are similar, maybe a little bit, to Tyler Boyd. I want to talk about a couple of those guys with Rhett, Bryan. Coming up next, here as RKW continues after this on 104.5 The Zone. What's up? It's Will Bowling. I want to update you with some exciting news from my friends at Brentwood Hearing Center. Their team of doctors of audiology are always committed to providing patients with the most recent hearing device technology. And their leadership team recently attended the launch of a revolutionary hearing aid, the Phonak Sphere. It dedicates completely to helping patients hear well in situations when there's background noise. There's a computer chip in it that completely dedicates to addressing speech and noise. It helps you when you're out to dinner at a noisy restaurant, you're visiting with friends or clients at a cocktail party, or even when you're attending sporting events and there's a lot of conversation going on around you. If you think you could benefit from this, or maybe you've got a family member who you know could benefit from this, give them a call, 615-377-0420, or visit them online at BrentwoodHearingCenter.com. That's 615-377-0420. Let what Brentwood Hearing Center introduce you to the sounds that you have been missing. Online at BrentwoodHearingCenter.com. That's Brentwood Hearing Center. Better hearing, better life. RKW continues in the fourth and final hour on your Wednesday morning. As we go back down to Mobile, Rhett, Bryan at Titans Radio on the line with us, scouting prospects, looking through binoculars, and probably eating very good food down there in the Gulf. Rhett, as you reflect on the conversations you guys have already had on Titans Radio and the OTP, if you're telling people to go listen to one, and one that was particularly interesting to you, what's kind of been your favorite conversation you've had so far?
All right, back up just a second. I'm about to go into the stadium, so yes, I will be using binoculars. And as far as food,
yes,
outstanding. We went to Felix's Fish Camp last night, which is a long-standing establishment here, and I had some ahi tuna that would knock your socks off last night. And the crab soup, and I mean, oh my gosh! If you love seafood, boom! If you're ever this way, come to Felix's Fish Camp because it is fantastic.
Nice.
Now, of the interviews banked, there's a couple. One this morning from the aforementioned Pat Bryant, wide receiver from Illinois, 6'2", a little bit over 2 bills. And just a long, rangy wide receiver, a Jacksonville, Florida native. Won't hold that against him because he's a really nice young man. And it's really interesting because he told us in this interview, and I want you to hear it when it drops. It'll be in an OTP coming to you soon. But he talked about he wanted to go to a place where he could kind of carve out his own name and legacy. And so he makes his way to Champaign, Illinois. He becomes one of just 14 football players in the history of the Fighting Illini, which they've been playing since the late 1890s, to actually start games as a true freshman at wide receiver. And he just got better as he went along. I think 137 catches, 2,096 yards, 19 career touchdowns. But this year, he really blossomed in 2024. I think he had 54 for 986, but 10 touchdowns. And a big part of turning a program around. I mean, Illinois was pretty bad when he got there, and he wanted to be a part of something special to build it up. And, what do they go, 10-3 this year in the Big Ten?
Right.
And just an outstanding young man, and got to talking to him about, I was like, okay, you clearly have a plan. You clearly love the game, and you have this workers mentality. Where did that come from? He said, my dad. He said, my dad started me in football when I was 4 years old. And I said, and he got just to talk, the way he was talking about his dad, just with the reverence and discipline involved in all of that. I said, so what you're telling me is your dad was one of those that said, look, I'm not your friend, I'm your dad. He said 100%. He said he has been on me. And he said sometimes maybe he pushed me a little too hard. But he said that's kind of made me who I am. But just a bright young man, great personality. And listen, Coach Mack was just thrilled talking to him because he was one of those guys that, Coach would see and saying, ready-made. He just a really strong background, really strong work ethic, and a really good athlete to begin with. So that would be one. And then we did one yesterday with Mike Green, the pass rusher from Marshall.
Yeah.
And not the biggest guy, he's 6'3", but he's long arms and very explosive off of the edge. I mean, he won basically the sack title in college football last year for the Thundering Herd. He had 17 sacks and led the nation there. And he's a Virginia transfer, so he's a really smart guy and just a great personality. And, again, Mike Green from Marshall, that's a name to remember because in the world of the NFL looking for pass rushers, everybody's looking for one of those. He'll end up being probably a first-round talent because there was, I think, 10 first-rounders last year in this group from Mobile. He could be one of those for sure.
Rhett, Bryan at Titans Radio with us from Mobile at the Reese's Senior Bowl. Rhett, I feel like there is a type of wide receiver in this draft. There are a lot of big pass catchers, and specifically as it pertains to the Titans in the slot position with Tyler Boyd's contract expiring, it feels like, Rhett, there are a lot of Tyler Boyd types. I know Jack Beck of TCU is a guy that Ramon mentioned when he visited with us earlier this morning, of bigger route technicians, not your typical 5'10", 5'9", 175 soaking wet slot receivers that can outrun you, but those bigger targets. Is that a fair assessment? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Jack Beck is one of those at 6'2", and just a little over 2 bills. And he had a couple of moments yesterday where you're like, yep, I see what we're talking about here. And that's why I'm interested to see, talking about in the first segment, if you just joined us, go get those Zone podcasts wherever you get them, because you can hear that first segment in the 9 o'clock hour, top of the 9 o'clock hour. But this is where I'm looking to see those quarterbacks reset a little bit today and find more of their footing, because that's the reason I watched those skill position guys yesterday, knowing that the quarterbacks typically in the first day of Senior Bowl don't do as well. And then they have, you'll see a guy stack a day or two as you get on into the week. But Jack Besh is certainly one of those. Pat Bryant that I was just talking about from Illinois, he's 6'2" and change, and he mostly played as an outside receiver, but he said he likes going inside in the slot and in the reps that he's done that before. I think who is it? Jaden Higgins from Iowa State. He's 6'2", 6'3". So, yeah, there's a bunch of these guys down here like this, not just the Xavier Restrepos from Miami that, that are everybody's looking for that smaller slot guy. But, yeah, there's bigger options for sure.
Rhett Bryan joined us down at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. Now, I didn't see this part on the NFL Network, but I've read a lot about how supposedly out of any of the quarterbacks, Dillon Gabriel had the best day, although some people said he wasn't spectacular. But then I hear that he reportedly threw a ball that reached over 74.9 miles per hour, which is the fastest ball thrown in pre-draft testing ever. Please tell me, there was some sort of confusion with this, because I feel like guys like Joe Milton, Josh Allen probably topped that.
No, in fact, that is true. They have had analytics here for a while through Zebra Sports, and that's what they kept posting on the Jumbotron here. And I was with you because with Joe Milton here last year, I think he hit 166, 67 miles an hour, something like that. And you would think it would be much more robust than the number that Dillon Gabriel put up at nearly 75. But yeah, Dillon Gabriel, I think, did have a nice day. The thing with him that I think people have discovered when you look at him up close, saw him in the hotel when we got our credentials Monday afternoon. That guy is height challenged. He checked in at 5'10". He's a smaller guy, but he is the most tenured guy. I mean, he broke Bo Nix's games played in college football as a quarterback. He had 64 games of experience. He's been around. Started out with Josh Heupel in Central Florida, went to Oklahoma, and then finished up at Oregon. But no, listen, he can certainly show some of what he can do here, and people have seen it, with the Duck program in the last couple of years. But yeah, he's a smaller guy. He really is. But like I was saying earlier, Tyler Shuck from Iowa State, I thought he had a decent day in some spots. And again, Seth Hennigan from Memphis is one that kind of made some connections in one of these practices yesterday.
Rhett, for you today, I know you said you're just arriving. What are you kind of looking at today and giving us a preview of what to look forward to?
Well, I think Will set it up perfectly with the O-line, D-line stuff. Offensive line got the better of the D-line and highly prospect D-line and edge rushers in this yesterday, and I look for that to kind of go back the other way in the defensive line's favor. That's one, and then just seeing, again, the quarterbacks trying to set their footing in a second day with some surroundings and kind of getting their bearings into this. It's always the skill players. I mean, I'm looking at tight ends, looking at wide receivers, even a running back or two. But, yeah, I'm certainly looking at the receivers in this and off-ball linebackers, because the Titans, are probably going to be in the market for at least one of those. Jeffrey Bassa from Oregon is somebody that's very intriguing, because he's a guy that's converted safety, much like Keith Bullock was all those years ago when the Titans took him. And he can be a 3-down back for sure. And I think he actually has some special teams work as well. But yeah, there's some off-ball linebackers that are very interesting to me. In fact, one, Demetrius Knight from South Carolina. He has an interesting story. So Demetrius Knight is a guy that started his career, played 4 years at Georgia Tech. Then he transferred to, where did he go? He went to Charlotte. And then while he was in Charlotte, Now, he's married, has 2 young children, a little boy and a little girl. And obviously there's not a ton of NIL money pouring into Charlotte, into that program. So he worked as a DoorDash driver to support his family. And then his last year of eligibility, he had a really nice year with South Carolina, and decent-sized off-ball linebacker that has good explosion and is able to play in space and certainly come down and stop a runner in those gaps. So Demetrius Knight is somebody that's interesting to watch, and I'd love to be able to get a chance to talk to him because he has some very famous cousins, very famous royalty in the vein of not only athletics but music. So he's a cousin to D'Angelo Hall, and then he is also cousins of the great Gladys Knight.
Wow.
And also Aretha Franklin.
Goodness.
Oh, my goodness. That is like king status.
Yeah, it's in the world of music, it's royalty.
That's right.
Wow.
The kind of nuggets you only get from Rhett Bryan at Titans Radio here. I love it.
Yeah, Demetrius Knight, man, is all indications. If that guy's doing DoorDash stuff after ball games in Charlotte to make ends meet for his family, he's the kind of dude I want.
Impressive.
That's sweet.
Very impressive. Rhett Bryan at Titans Radio with us this morning. Rhett, do you feel like the Titans could find a number 1 tight end in this class? Because reading about maybe the one position group that was the best out of anybody, from talking to Ramon, from talking to you, guys like Elijah Arroyo with Mason Taylor, Terrence Ferguson in Oregon, and Harold Fannin, who didn't even have the greatest day yesterday compared to those other guys, but put up like prime, Anthony Gonzalez level numbers this season at Bowling Green. Could the Titans find value there in such a deep position in this draft class?
They can. They absolutely can. And you mentioned, Mason. When Mason Taylor put his name in the hat when they dropped the underclassmen reveals, I guess it was last week, that really kind of put the icing on this group that's here in Mobile. And we mentioned, Jake Brenningstool had a nice career with Clemson, the former Ravenwood standout. He's somebody that can help you. But you name some of the names. I mean, yeah, there's some guy, but you can see why Elijah Arroyo from University of Miami, that was one of Cam Ward's favorite targets. And I can certainly see why. Got the strength, got the size, got the moves. But, yeah, there are lots of tight end prospects to kind of keep an eye on in this. And it's a good tight end class because, we hadn't even talked about the kids that are at the East-West Shrine game and who will be invited to the Combine. But it's a good year for that.
Rhett, I thought it was interesting in the car wash Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan did with the media down there. Brian Callahan mentioned, in Cincinnati, we knew we were going to take Joe Burrow pretty early. That's a bit of a different story. That's not what this draft is for us right now. There are times where the number 1 overall pick is cut and dry and set in stone, probably already by this point. Clearly, that is not the case, Rhett, and it continues to feel like Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan have a lot of options, and I would imagine are having a lot of conversations with teams while they're down there in Mobile right now.
Well, and I think you're right, because, listen, all the great content that Jim Wyatt and the Titans put out with them meeting with Shedeur Sanders at the East-West Shrine game towards the end of last week as those festivities ramped up, got people's wheels turning. And look, could they take Shedeur Sanders? Sure. They could take Cam Ward. They could take, any of these guys because they are in the catbird seat. They have the number 1 overall pick. Will they? We'll see. Because to your point, there's no Arch Manning in this draft. And it's not even as much, as it was with last year's class. And that's no slight towards the quarterbacks involved in this. But you're right about one thing. If you're going to start to percolate conversations about if I could, would you? If I could send you the number 1 pick, would you take this, and this? Those things start a little bit down here. They really pick up steam at the Combine and then work from there. But they got options, and all they need is one partner to work in a trade in this. As I always say, it takes 2 to tango, and they could find a tango partner and start conversations. And it'd be an exploratory thing here. It would just be hey, if you could send me X player and send me these picks, what would you do? That kind of stuff. But they have options. They have plenty of options.
Rhett, they did make it official a couple days ago in terms of some of the staff changes, and we were just talking about tight ends a minute ago. What did you think of Luke Stalker getting the call up? He's been here for a minute. I feel like a lot of players respect him, and how do you think that he'll do as now the tight ends coach?
Earned.
Yeah.
He earned. He put in the work. Clearly, you could see how his guys in that last couple of years, he's been in the Titans building in that capacity as an assistant to help. You can clearly see that there's a level of respect there because he played it. He played the game for a long time and knows the position. I'm very happy for Luke Stalker, and of course for Titans fans who happen to also be Vols fans, that's a big thing. That's a good thing. But he does have a good level of respect amongst peers and players in the league because he's done it. But yeah, well earned, well deserved.
He is Rhett Bryan at Titans Radio at the Reese's Senior Bowl with the Titans Radio crew. Subscribe to the OTP if you haven't yet. What are you doing? The official Titans podcast, wherever you download podcasts, for all these conversations with prospects, getting to know these guys. Because, Rhett, the draft will be here before we know it. The process flies by, and loving all the stuff you guys are doing down there. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I think it's, if I'm counting, 84 days till that April 24th night that we're probably very cool in Green Bay, Wisconsin, because I feel like it doesn't get warm there till like July. So
no, right.
I'm glad we're not traveling there to do coverage. So, yeah, that's good.
I love it. Awesome. Good stuff,
Thanks,
Rhett.
Rhett.
Thank you, sir.
All right, y'all. Have a good one.
Yes, sir. Rhett Bryan with us this morning from Mobile at the Senior Bowl. There was a clarification, by the way, on the Dylan Gabriel initial reading thing.
Oh, okay.
Sean McAvoy, who's a great follow on Twitter, by the way, QB coach, Elite 11 guys, worked with them in the past, on Twitter says it is an initial airspeed number recorded via a chip in the football by Zebra Technologies. So for context, Joe Milton actually was even faster than what Dylan Gabriel threw in that stat. A little bit of misinformation out there about exactly what Dylan Gabriel did. The NFL news aggregator accounts must be stopped. There
Please
are so
do
many
that
of them.
for me.
And there was a report out there that Dylan Gabriel threw a ball 75 miles per hour. That was the initial airspeed number. For context, Joe Milton threw 176 and Malik Willis threw 175 in 2022.
Yeah, I was like, I'm sorry, I don't believe that. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. 615-737-1045. Final call for phone calls as we get you on your way. Are we going to check in with Ramon again? Executive producer Robert Walsh? What's
I
the plan
believe
here?
so.
Okay. Ramon Foster going to check in one more time as he gets ready for Senior Bowl practice. We'll go back to Mobile and talk with the Big Ragu coming up next. Wrapping up the show at RKW 104.5 The Zone as we go back to Mobile and visit once again with our guy, Ramon Foster. We're giving him homework today. First of all, Ramon, did you get to watch the Tennessee game at all last night, or were you lucky enough to be eating seafood and avoid it?
Yes, that's exactly what was going on. There wasn't up on it. I saw it. I got a couple of hate texts from some UK people that I know. But I'd be flagrant if I try to give you a breakdown right now. Well, I just know we lost.
Well, as bad a day as Jalen Milroe had, I'm glad those Kentucky fans had their basketball team to cheer for last night. So that's quite all right for them. One player you are watching most closely today, Ramon. What are you watching with those binoculars that you bought?
I want to see if the Arroyo kid from the tight end has another day too. That's one thing Bert and I was just talking about as we were decompressing a little bit from earlier today. I want to see if he can back it up again in practice. And also, when you have a guy that's this good as it pertains to his college career as far as Restrepo, like think of all the legendary wide receivers that came out of Miami.
Oh, yeah.
I know he stayed there for a very long time, but you still went to Miami and stayed the course and became their leading receiver in Miami history. Now, I know they got a bunch of 3-and-dones and everything else as it pertains to Miami, but that's saying a lot for a kid that knows how to catch the football. And that's one thing I've heard good coaches say. Find guys that do what they do well, and they also do it in college. So he has a very unique skill set of catching the football. So because of that, like you want to find guys that are good in comeback catches and getting open and have high volume like him. So I kind of want to see if he back that up. And then, of course, man, this league is based upon who? The quarterbacks. Will they actually show up today better than they did yesterday? And what's the narrative after that? Was it just, hey, I'm transitioning from throwing a bigger football. Hey, the wide receiver's timing. So those are the things I kind of want to see as far as the breakdown goes. And just seeing which side of the ball, like, dominates a little bit more today. So I kind of want to see the back and forth of the offenses, just defenses, and who's going to stand out as far as linebackers go with this group, man. So a lot to really ingest and take in. But it's a lot of good talent down here also. By the way, I think I brought him up, Trey Amos, Ole Miss cornerback. Mm-hmm. He just seemed to stay stuck to guys yesterday. Got to see if he can back it up and bring it back out today, but those are the things I'm looking at too. And also, too, Oregon's linebacker, Jeffrey Bassa, I think is his name. He showed up well in the run game yesterday and when he had to drop in coverage. So I will be expanding beyond the offensive line and D-line today and look more at those wide receivers and corners and, see what happens with them.
Ramon, with some of these small school guys, we talked about them earlier when you joined the show in the 7 o'clock hour. How crucial is it, though, for them to stack days? Because it's one thing to have a good day as a small, team player, small conference player. But what do they really have to do to start getting teams to look at them seriously?
It's to do exactly as you said, dominate the guys that are in front of them again. Like a lot of this league, the NFL, is about show that you belong. And that's where a lot of these dudes have to do. And Jim Nagy brought it up with us. Like, it's a bunch of guys that you know of but hadn't seen tape on them. And you're skeptical, but you need to check and see if they're capable of being able to hold their own. Like, that's the biggest thing. And I'll be quite honest with you. Mike Green from Marshall, what his specialty is running up the field. What is he going to do as it pertains to setting the edge and not just running the corner super fast because you might run a 4.4, you know what I'm saying, at 250 pounds. He has to be in a position to do those types of things. And, of course, we mentioned earlier the guard from North Dakota State. Yeah. All right? Like, can he do a Grace Abel? Can he do that again? Can he hold his own? And we don't really talk much about, Southern Cal, but, like, their center, Jonah Munheim. He's a guy that I think has a little bit of a short arms. I didn't see his measurement. It just looked to me like they were shorter, okay? So can he snap and do well out of, coming out of the Big Ten the way they did this year? So those are the things that I'm looking for. I hadn't really dove deep into the MAC guys, the MACtion guys, but it's more of those, you can tell, those transfer guys that switch schools and either went up or down in conference. Can they actually hold their own? That's what I'll be looking for. Another guy I'll bring up real quick again. This is one of those things where reputations of schools. Iowa is one of those schools, and I was just told by a scout here, his name is Waya Black, the defensive lineman. Will he continue to do what you think he is? Like this national group that we're watching right now, they got more, I'll be honest with you, 3-4 types of guys, I feel like, bigger body dudes. And to be honest with you, a lot of these schools are Nebraska, Michigan, Boston College, Minnesota. So you're going to get big, burly defensive linemen. So what kind of technique and explosiveness can they actually generate too? Or do we have to wait till the American team this afternoon and say, well, that's where our playmakers are? Because, Will, you mentioned it earlier. Like, that's where Walter Nolan is. You know what I'm saying? That's where the Alabama and Texas A&M guys are. I want to see this group this morning have some explosiveness.
Ramon, real quick, we got about a minute. Should the Titans be in the market for a starting tight end in this draft? You let the board speak to you sometimes, and maybe very early in the process, the board might be telling me the Titans could upgrade on Chig out of this draft class. Is that fair?
That is very fair. Yes, I'll be honest with you. Mason Taylor, I know he got it in him because he's proven it since he was a freshman at LSU. Yes, I will be in on him, especially if I can get him top of the second. I talked to a rep of his that some would think that he can slide into the first. So if you're borderline back end first, early second, and he's still there first pick and going into the second round, well, in order for any quarterback to be good, you got to give him weapons. So I'm in on Mason Taylor. I'm also in on what I've seen on day one of Elijah Arroyo. Those are my two top getters right there. I know there's a guy out of Buffalo, Eastern Michigan. That's a really good tight end, but he's an undersized guy. I say undersized. He's like 6'2", 6'3". A lot of volume. I think he led all tight ends in yards this year.
Harold Fannin, Bowling Green.
Yes.
Stud.
There we go. He's here too. He hadn't. So, Will, to that point, or Taylor, to your point about small school guys, I hadn't seen him pop the way I have Elijah Arroyo.
Fair enough.
So, but yeah, weapons. Will 100% a second round tight end. Sign me up.
That's your homework for me. I want to know about Harold Fannin Jr. tomorrow because that's my Mackey Award winner. Tyler Warren stole the award from the rightful Mackey Award winner, and no one can change my mind. He is Ramon Foster down in Mobile. Appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. No doubt about it. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow.
See you,
all right, there's Ramon, and that is the show. You can hear Ramon at 11:20 apparently as well on the Buck Rising Show.
There you go.
Coming up next, busy man Ramon Foster. We are back at it tomorrow. We'll hear more from Ramon. We'll hear more from Coach Mack in Mobile. By the way, Jim Nagy going to join us Friday. Executive Director of the Senior Bowl. So looking forward to that as well. Back at it tomorrow, bright and early, 6 a.m. The Buck Rising Show next on 104.5 The Zone.